Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Dan Tom here, host of the Protect Your Neck podcast. You might see my work from MMA Junkie or Action Network, but on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's before the fight. So I'm recording this as per usual Thursday night, slightly later. Please spare me the comments. I already felt bad for pushing it back 15 to 30 minutes than it needed to be. And of course, it's in my fucking ear. I can barely recognize my intro. I can barely keep up. And I've already lost my sentence. I'm off to a great fucking start, folks. Actually, like I said in my tweet, I'm actually really excited despite everything this year, this last week, this last series, this everything. I'm actually trying to be positive. And you just got to forgive me. I have been sleeping in 1 to 1.5 hour intervals for the last 36 hours. And although I didn't get a hard workout in today, I did work out hard for the last 3 days straight to try to recoup from getting my ass kicked from being sick. Because when I finally started getting some workout momentum, like I think I worked out like 7 hard practices out of 9 days. I haven't done that since like training camp for last year's amateur fight. Really proud of myself. And then of course, got to be sick. And then even though I don't want to be the late guy, if it's not my stomach, of course it's my dog's stomach. The dog's fine. Thank you guys for asking. Boxer stomachs, for those who have boxers, they just have the sensitive stomachs in the world, and it just, at the most kind of inopportune times. So, pardon me, I didn't have certain things dotted in T. You're going to have to deal with me ruffling through papers because I didn't want to keep you guys waiting any longer. I don't deserve the likes. I don't deserve the monetization. Will strong start, Dan. Why don't you just shoot yourself down and show your ass? But we're going to get to the UFC 296 breakdown after a quick recap, as per usual, for UFC Vegas 83. So apologies for being late. Please, I love you guys. I know it's well-meaning, but please spare me the comments of, if you can only stay for a little bit because it's later, that's fine. But I always hate those because I'm like, I only started like 15 minutes later, and my show, my long-winded ass goes at least like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it's like, if I start 15 minutes later, like, how much does that really throw you off if you're here to hang out? So I'm just being a nitpicky asshole, and I'm picking on the little audience that I have. But yeah, apologies for being late in the later start. Those of you listening ahead of time, you don't have to worry about it. In fact, you guys usually get like a cool edited version. Much as I love you YouTube people, I hope you guys appreciate the edited versions as well. I put music in there. If it's a top 5 show, I edit like audio trackings to go along as much as I can, as much time as I have at least. So hopefully you guys appreciate that. And we're going to get to the usual format, which is the usual format. Newer listeners, I'm not going to try to berate you like I just berated my OGs, but yes, it is normal. We recap the week before, and then we're going to get into, it's a really fun card despite the cancellations. I know. I looked up, I'm like, am I really wearing a fucking suit? I'm trying to look like nicer this week too, it's like a big week. It's a pay-per-view week, which increases the FOMO and the whole stuff that I love and hate. And between, being a dead-ass broke, not broke, but like, the money I did have reinvested it back into the show. One of the things on my list, though, is to get suits, but between not, cashing in the fun money funds to having to wait probably till next month anyways. I have to wait till to buy any actual suits, like, till January. But yeah, trying to do some stuff, maybe go karate combat tomorrow. We'll see if I can actually get some sleep tonight. Shouts to people who are out and about. Apologies if I'm not responding. Just a lot of work and whatnot. No award show, but that doesn't mean I can't be dressed up nice, right? MMA awards are obviously going on now. Shouts to the deserving people who are nominees, but you guys know my feelings on the fighters only thing. So even thank you more for joining me here. And yeah, sorry. It's like you would have thought I just got from the road. You need your decompress time sometimes, just to kind of decompress, and I didn't really have that. That's why I love doing shows. I miss doing shows with my guy Aaron. Shout out to Aaron Bronstetter. I got to see him today actually. We hit up one of our favorite Jewish delis in town, and I always miss doing shows with him because he always could tell when like he's like a hostage negotiator. Like he would start the show late even just to kind of like, the decompression time. Especially old Dan Tom needs it. So apologies. We're good. We're focused. I'll get to your guys' comments. I appreciate you. You can hit whatever you want, I guess. I don't give a shit. Yeah, no, it was a crazy card. UFC 83 recap. I do have the results page pulled up. I just want to hit you guys up in the chat. Tragedy before fortune, my man. Fenyo. What's up, Fenyo? Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong thing, of course. It's this whole backdrop behind me is really messing me up. Sorry, folks, I didn't have my normal setup here. There we go. Tragedy before fortune, man. I'm actually feeling good, man. Like, obviously usually I'll let it kind of come up organically, but it's the last, show of the year, so we're gonna go big. I'm going big. And it's not even so much just to go big, although it's fun too. It's at the end of the year. Not hard to justify doing so. But the analysis actually lines up for what that's worth, and I know it's let me down, but you know what? If I'm doing good analysis like all you say I am, I guess, or whatever, if it's that whole, from the betting perspective, long-term winners and all that, shit talk. Long-term, though, you play these numbers, bro. Oh, but long-term, your process, bro. Maybe between all that, sorry, I don't know where I'm going here, but basically, I'm gonna lose anyways this year. Might as well keep doing what I'm doing. I'm just really excited to talk about. I don't want to say too much more. It's gonna tip my hand, but we're riding or dying with the ride or dies. So it's I'm really excited. And you guys should be too. Let's see who else is up in here. Chronic Combat Conversations. Love these guys. No better time than Dan Tom time. I don't know about that, guys. You guys keep saying that. I'm at my worst right now. Are you guys even? Are you blind? I'm just kidding. I love you guys, but yeah, no. I just can't take compliments. Is what that is. Makoto Kayagoku. I hope your dog is okay. Yeah, dog is fine. Thank you guys for that. This is the last PYN of the year. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Dan. Yeah, I don't know if it'll be the last. I'll probably do a recap show. I won't be doing like a recap, end of the year show, because I'm just not organized. I want to blame I'm not cool enough or whatever. Rudolph's not invited to any reindeer games or whatever. But to be honest, let's be honest, guys. Despite my best efforts, clearly, I just can't even get organized enough to really show up to the regular shows, much less get awards. And I even have a great, podcast name. If there's one good thing about this podcast, it's the name, and I could use awards I could go to Neckies, right? You know what I'm saying? That's not a bad one, right? But, and you guys actually, I think Ghost and Jimmy Kudo and some other people, maybe Rain Lamina, have really, low-key suggested some really cool topics throughout the year. So if you guys remember that, feel free to plug those in the chat. Speaking of, man. Hey Dan, take a break from me doing taking a break from doing snarky replies on Twitter, and just wanted to say that yourself and Jack Slack are inspirations for film study for dudes like myself. So thank you for all you do. I appreciate that, man. I got to acknowledge the positive, and for as much as you may not feel like you get the credit you're due for. There's people like the Ghost that I feel like give me too much credit, but I appreciate it, and make sure to follow. It's 9H6ST21. It should be on his Twitter handle as well. Excellent threads. I've been sharing those out as much as I can, and including those. James Kendrick, Dan, you are awesome. Too kind. Chris London made it for this week's pity party. Yeah, I know. Yeah, apologies. Joe Ho-Ho's finally caught you live for once. Apologies for the shitty intro, but I appreciate you being here. Rhea says in Truesdale, amazing year, Dan. You, Chris Personnel, Drake, and Alex Behunin are the only live chats that I am a part of. So wishing you a great end to the show. I appreciate you guys for being here. I don't deserve it, but you guys are awesome. Dan, the chat has been great. Let's keep it up. It's been great thanks to people like you, Jimmy, and Ghost. I do got to get in touch with you guys again for some end of the year appreciations that I want to pass forward. Looking slick, Dan. Pascal, too kind, sir. Notice I got to push back real quick from that one because I weird with compliments. Rain Lamina, no clever pun today. Love Aaron Brownstetter and end of the year show. It's been quite a ride. Aaron Brownstetter has a good end of the year show, but I don't know what's going on with his, or I don't want to speak for him. But a TSN show, SN MMA show, I really miss that right now. And he usually does an excellent end of the year panel. That I hope he does some form this year. Aaron, hopefully you do that. But yeah, okay, I'm here now. Much love, Dan Fanyo. You are the man. Yeah, another person that's too kind. All right, I want to get through this bullshit. Results. We did bad. I think we went down Sorry, you guys got to deal with page ruffles. Minus 3 units. We went like 0 for on the round robins, you know. No, we went 1 for 4. We'll see how close we get. How close we got when I recap it, because I can't pull it up in my mind right now. Straight plays, we went 1 for 1. We'll talk about that. Both were dog shots. And then, yeah, I missed a bunch of other shit, so let's just go through it. Song Yadong defeated Chris Gutierrez. I can't really complain about this one because I was barely watching it. It's good news when you're sorry for the pity party comment person, but like when your soul gets beaten by the end of these cards, you're just like, I'm like a Wolverine, you know, like, you know, when they're calling him for the cage fight, he's just so disinterested, like he can't even turn around to look at his opponent. He's just like, yeah, whatever. Like that's me. I'm like not even facing the TV screen at that point of the night. You know, I'm doing something else or something. But yeah, there's that. Khalil Roundtree defeated Anthony Smith via 3rd round TKO. Yeah, if anybody was going to get the round 3, you thought it was going to be Smith, despite the short notice maybe. But no, Roundtree, those counters and, you know, maintaining his pressure, the check right hook that I did talk about. Although I was rooting for Smith at that point because I just couldn't help with the numbers there. The under miss, of course, despite it almost cashing a whole bunch, like Smith, to my memory at least, doing somewhat stanky legs. I forget, but that one was, you know, other people commiserated on that one as well. Appreciate you all, but, you know, losing bets, so it's what it is. Hack Press defeated Jamie Malarkey via 1st round TKO. Yeah, that was always a possibility, unfortunately. You just hate to see it happen, and again, like, you pick against the guy when he, you know, I'm not as excited as, like, you know, Taporia or Sarukian, right? But I was excited about Hack Press when he first came around too. So of course he finally starts again having his coming out party when I'm on the other side. Very classic there. But I didn't say it on this podcast, but I did say it and post it and play it all ahead of time for what that's worth. But so it's not exactly a hindsight thing. I just wish I said it on the podcast and spotted it. But that under 2.5 for plus 170 really seemed like kind of the play of the card. Really, in hindsight, like you just looked at that. There's just too much value for that coverage, and thankfully that, you know, didn't save me from anything really, but you know, kind of stopped the bleeding there. Tim Elliott got a sub, which was great, but again, it didn't. You know, the sub alone cash, which was good, but there was nothing. I couldn't get any of the other subs to go through. Muniz, man, he doesn't. I feel like people have studied his moves, and he just, you know, if it's not one of his like special moves that he likes, he won't go for other stuff, you know, and he just is not very criteria friendly, despite getting away with one. And even though I picked Muniz and played Muniz, for what it's worth, I kept the same energy because, again, going by the letter of the law, you could really make a very strong argument that Jung Young Park should have had rounds 1 and 3 there. Shout out to Laura Sanko for talking about something that seldom gets talked about, aside from people like myself, when speaking to the letter of the law, the criteria, when speaking to someone's fighting spirit. No, not their Modelo fighting spirit. And that was applicable, at least in round 2. The problem was round 2, no one was questioning who won round 2, right? That was a Muniz round. So yeah, like it just it found every way, you know, 'cause I had different, like I had like Iron Turtle round 2, round 3 subs, Muniz sub. And I think I also had, did I have an under? No, not on this one. But yeah, I just snuck through, and then at least I was able to cash Muniz, I guess, but I didn't feel great about it for what it's worth. Kevin Doucette defeated Song Kernan. Didn't watch that one too much. Hyung Sung Park did accordingly to Shannon Ross. Steve Mean Machine Garcia, brutal finish on Melquizo Costa there. Steve Garcia, is it just me? I don't know if he looks like, I don't know if it's Hey Arnold I'm thinking of, but he looks like one of the bully kids out of like that Nickelodeon, that Hey Arnold Nickelodeon era. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, look at it. Even like, no matter what the weight is, even if you go all the way back to when Steve Garcia was somehow cutting to 135, or if it's Steve Garcia 145, or Steve Garcia impromptu 155, doesn't matter how good a shape he's in. And I'm speaking of this not, you know, to be a dick, because there's a guy with a big head as well, and I'm not a pro fighter. You know, so there's that. I'm not trying to be a dick here. but he has like that Hey Arnold, like not Hey Arnold like the football head, but a character on one of those shows. I can't think of it. Maybe it's not Hey Arnold, but yeah, like Steve Garcia. He just looks like, you know, one of those bully kids. I don't know, like maybe it's like not Sid from Pixar, because that's Ryan Benoit, right? From Toy Story. But you know, maybe it's something like that too. I don't know. Great analysis, Dan. Luan Santos defeated Stephanie Egger via unanimous decision. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I didn't really watch that. Suotaro defeated Carlos Hernandez. I mean, dude gets a TKO. Who saw that coming? You know, as far as in that way, I guess. Talita Alencar defeated Rayan Amanda. Split decision. I don't really have an opinion on that one. Sorry, folks. So that is the recap for that. 15:46. All right. Sorry again for the shitty start, guys. It's embarrassing. I hate. I believe it or not, I actually don't like showing my ass and delivering a subpar product on top of subpar picks and plays on top of that. Like, believe it or not, that's actually not what I wake up with my intention to do. So again, apologies, and understand that I literally just go nonstop 6-7 days a week, no days off. And not doing well means not being able to take time off, and means I have to work harder, and just the slew of shit. Just the sacrifices you guys wouldn't believe. Sacrificing friends, family members, significant others multiple times fucking over in the last over half decade I've been doing this. So I might suck, you might not like it, which I don't know why you're here in that case, or listening if you're listening in the future. But just understand that I've sacrificed a ton in that regard, on top of the other sacrifices of, you know, getting hit in the head and all the other shit that the fighters we watch have gone through, except I don't have the accolades. As I'm reminded of on Fighters Only Awards times, and when it comes times to pick commentators for fights, yeah, I don't have those pro accolades by my name, so who the fuck am I? So apologies. All right, let's go. UFC 296. Let's just jump right into it. Fuck it. All right. Yeah, it's Covington Edwards off the top. Fucking best fight odds is like they're just finding ways to get shittier every time. There's like 10 events between the way they split it up. Like, are there even fucking 10 events or 8 events or whatever like this weekend? Jesus Christ, that are like line worthy. What the fuck is going on? Gordon Ali Abdelaziz, we're in a drought. I know it's not the same thing he's talking about. Neither here nor there. All right, I'm just gonna go pull it up. Motherfuckers, you guys aren't even like fucking. These motherfuckers. No one's in order. Goddamn. Is it that hard? You lazy fucking bastards. Wow, Dan. Potty mouth on Dan Tom today. Wouldn't matter if I was prepared for this one with the way like every odds thing just fucking scrambles it at the board. You fucking cunts. Sorry, C word. Leon Edwards minus 155. Colby Covington plus 130. I thought we was going to start moving away from that line because minus 155. Sorry, minus 155 for Leon Edwards. Colby Covington plus 130. Because minus 155 was the number that I got Edwards at. Spoiler alert, I know, lack of foreplay there. Listen, I've been someone who seldom picks against Covington over his career. I've defended the skills that he brings to the table when, you know, because that's what I have to do. I have to, you know, cut through the noise, right? So this isn't you just, you know, media doesn't like Covington or whatever. Like, I actually went on military trips with this dude, folks. Like, it's like before he started the whole I don't even want to use the word shtick at this point, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Now he's like dressing up like 1776. I don't know where his head's at. You know, he's already like feathering the nest to try to see like if he wins this somehow. He's like, I'm gonna fight Usman. Everyone's got to wait their turn, just, you know, turning people down and running that narrative, and more worried about like kind of a stand-up routine, like how much, you know, I know he works hard and stuff, but it's like, if you're a Covington supporter, that just like, dude, how much are we focusing on the fight here? And more importantly, let's get down to brass tacks. Covington is 5-0 against southpaws, UFC level southpaws. Edwards is 4-1. That loss, of course, comes in his UFC debut in Brazil. Split decision loss to Claudio Silva, new level. It's a very close fight, especially under more today's criteria gaze. I say that, and then we have like the Junk Iron Turtle decisions, but you guys know what I mean. Whereas Covington's obviously the crux to a lot of those were grappling. So even though he's a more impressive record and probably more dominant, right? Like it was kind of rinse, wash, and repeat against Barberena, whereas Barberena actually caught Edwards, right, with a left hand. Because again, southpaw lefts are hard for other southpaws to see. Say it all the time. So when it catches him, it seems to really catch him kind of by surprise. When you looked at it overall, whether it was Covington southpaw matchups or orthodox matchups, it really didn't matter the stance. Left hands were his common culprit, and that's something that I've noted in my analysis prior. In case you don't want to wait, like I always say, especially the fighters that actually have decent amount of profiles, you don't want to wait for my take, but there could be like useful information like, oh, I totally forgot or didn't know that Rose Namajunas is undefeated in fights where she's able to score back control. Fun fact, right? Certain things like that, or I forget little notes myself. I had to go read my notes before I go into the Rob Font and Figueiredo footage, and I'm like, oh crap, it says in my notes here that Rob Font traditionally struggled with guys who counter or work the body. That's the common culprit between all his losses and hard fights. And of course, you can't bank on that. Even if it's your own work, like it's my own work I'm reading, I'll still go back and watch things. But it's really helpful to kind of gain some notes there, so you don't always have to wait for my stuff that comes out more toward the end of the week, which is a real give and take. I feel like I'm really killing myself, aside from showing my ass and being shitty. I'm really killing myself on views by being later in the week, but at the same time I feel like I'm almost justified with all the cancellations. It's like, do you want a fresh breakdown? And for me, it's like, as far as my side of it, not that anybody cares, but I already have enough work. Do I really need to be breaking down two matchups, the original and the replacement, and sweating it? And I think it's just that whole FOMO, CLV kind of thing. I'll pick up of a previous note because my brain works all fucked up. But to finish the thought earlier, it's going to be Die Hard. It's going to be the GIF threads. And I got a good feeling. Again, I know I started negative. I've been negative, but I believe it or not, I actually go into these things positive. That's the annoying part, is like I do feel positive despite all the negative things. And people just kind of see this, right? That's why I say I hate these anger management movies or like Meet the Parents movies, because everyone's like, oh, it's funny. I'm like, no, it's not. This is my life. It's, I'm the person who's just running into like circumstantial shit. And then you run into a person and they run into you at 10, but they didn't see steps 1 through 9. So not only can they/you not understand what you see, but not only would you understand it if you knew, if you experienced it, you'd even be crazier than fucking me or whoever the fucking character is you're watching. Okay? But of course you don't know that, right? And how could you? So I just got to take it on the chin. Look like an asshole out here. Get back to the breakdown, Dan. But yeah, left hands is the common culprit for the Covington notes, and as well as body work, right? And the body work becomes a prevalent note in his series with Usman. They both kind of show that weakness on each other. You got two guys with good chins, good gas tanks, both Usman and Covington, right? Good wrestling, improving striking. Where's the weakness, right? It's the body, we learned in that series. And as I said in the Edwards Usman breakdown, the last one, which by the way, I didn't post this, but like, there's certain breakdowns that I'm really proud of. Want to go all the way back to like Holm Shevchenko or to like last year's breakdown, probably would be Gaethje Oliveira, right? Making the notes that, yeah, he can knock him down, but he can't follow him down. And that's the crux there, right? And everybody picked up that note and ran with it after, if they didn't already have or embrace that note prior. If you go look back my last Pantoja-Moreno breakdown or my last Usman Edwards breakdown, fuck, if I can, as for someone who beats the shit out of himself for the majority of these program, if I can pat myself on the back for like just 1 second, boy, did those age fucking well, right? And shouts to Ghost, who did a Excellent clenching thread. And those of you shouting me as well as Ghost as far as the hand fighting stuff, because I went back to read my breakdown of my notes and I'm like, yeah, I did, because I almost forgot. Like, you guys reminded me, right? Like, to come clean. Not that I don't come clean with you guys, but, I forgot. And when I went back to read, I'm like, oh, yeah, I did mention that. Like, it was just the over-unders, the hand fighting. And I mentioned that prior, so hearing commentary pick that up, Cormier smartly going, look, it's a 2-on-1 grip. He's using it to get out of everything here. They drilled it just for Usman. It validated my analysis for not just picking Edwards, but picking him to win by decision. Both those guys, by the way, who, have shown to gas prior. If they were going to underdogs, if they were going to win, it sure as shit wasn't going to be by decision. And not only did I pick it, which any asshole can do the betting thing where you just pick the contrarian thing. No, I actually got to show my work and did. And they both did it to the letter. And the 2-on-1 note, hold that, because that also goes to another note that I said that, it wasn't a genius to be like, oh, he set up the head kick by going to the body and legs. Like, everybody knows that, right? But the body in particular, I noted, was a note that was not just for the head kick, but I said it also could be a sign that shows that both Leon and or his team know how to game plan and take information, take tactics and past information and apply it into the current, right? And he did. With all that body work, was just amplified, even more diverse in the rubber match, right? And also reincorporate that previous note that we just page noted of the 2-on-1 grips. And it was clear that he game planned specifically for Usman. And as far as the bodywork part of that goes, well, where did he get that information? Well, I just said it. It was the Covington series, right? So if Edwards was able to pick up that information and apply it from the Usman side, I got to imagine he saw the Covington side of it too. Covington getting hurt to the body, right? And whether it was in that fight or southpaws, again, orthodox and southpaw alike, not just left hand's the common culprits, but left body kicks. Both seem to land at a high clip and get Covington's respect. And that's something that Edwards has always been good at and has only gotten better at diversifying his with front kicks to the body, as well as the Thai style middle kicks to the body, right? So there's that. And now we go to and we don't have much of a, everyone picks on Colby's resume, and I get it. I'm not defending his resume, and I'm not coming at people doing that. But you just got to work with what you have, right? And what we have is May of 2022 for his last sample size, and it was a 5-round one, but it was against Masvidal. Not just post-prime Masvidal, but I don't like to use this word, but it was an arguably washed Masvidal. And an arguably post-prime washed Masvidal who was gassed, at least from, 50 to 60% of that fight. So at least from the midway point, if not a little before, clearly gassing, right? Which is probably generous, probably clearly before the midway point. But if you look, Jorge Masvidal, he gets out of every negative position, some better than others, right? But how does he do it, pretty much? He uses, turtle cage, yeah, but there's a lot of grip fighting, right? There's 2-on-1 grips, there's cross grips. It's all grip fighting. That's what he uses. And back to the Edwards thing, it's something that he already has been good at in multiple fights, has shown that he can apply it specifically and tactically and effectively to the highest level, wrestlers, welterweights, etc. How much is Colby Covington going to get done? And even if he does secure decent control time, again, if I know we're back in Vegas and Vegas / high level judges, Dan, well, those are the ones that, are the ones that have been waffling on their 10-8s and even on certain criteria languages with the Park Turtle dynamic, right? I know, I get it. You can never count on it. I'm not saying to. But yes, by the letter of the law, for what it's worth, not the most criteria-friendly style Covingtons, right? Especially against a guy who's going to be hard to hold down like Edwards, which means you're going to be a little more reluctant to strike because you might lose position. Also, and you guys know I talk about, shout out to Aliens, Bill Pax, the Pax. Game over, man. Game over. Covington, as much as I love that grinding style of game. I love positional rides and all that stuff. He's not a game over grappler. It's not like when Damian Maia gets you down. So again, even if he does get him down, what does he do there? And outside of left hands and body work, another disturbing striking look that happened, and again the most relevant sample size from Covington, was in the 4th round where Masvidal drops him. I didn't remember this at the time. I had to go back again and look at the tape. But I didn't realize Masvidal actually drops him with a check right hook, a southpaw check right hook. And again, that is one of Edwards' shots. In fact, he actually throws the right hook more against fellow southpaws, dating all the way back, and this is something that's pretty consistent, all the way back to his Claudio Silva near level fight. Like he's tagging him up with the right hook pretty damn good. And yeah, that's a shot he goes for more in the same stance matchups. And then you've got cage positioning. Colby, he will switch more orthodox. So will Leon, but Colby will fight more back foot, which I don't know is the greatest. And if he does sell out to pressure, which I think is his best option, where he fights best, right? Lest we not forget, it's not like his gas tank is completely bulletproof either. And, aside from being able to be hurt to the body and stuff like that in later rounds of the Usman fight, you look at the RDA fight. I always point out, which is a lot closer than people realize. Especially if we're grading criteria, the letter of the law today. Go back and watch that fight, right? But more specifically, RDA in round 4 was able to get takedowns on Covington and turn the tide, and that was like half his ears falling off. He's been facing a bigger guy. RDA is kind of not that RDA gasses, but he's exhausted himself, right? So let's not pretend that Covington, especially if he was actually having some success as far as like getting the positions he wanted to get to. Whether or not he was doing a lot or enough with them is another story in that RDA fight. But does he get more tired if he's getting shut down? So outside of a mental lapse, which could totally happen, you're going to probably have a pro-Covington crowd. Again, I know everyone gets mad at the media to keep politics out of sports, but it's like, dude, look at this lineup. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at the fighters on the cards from the prelims. For their past statements toward immigrants and people of color. They're gonna be all jacked up. I guess Trump's gonna be here again because again, every pay-per-view is like the Republican National Convention, but it's the media. It's the fucking media, guys. Those fucking goofs. But yeah, it's. But yeah, so there's gonna be a pro. I'm actually bringing up the relevant portion of that to the analysis, which is there's gonna be a pro Covington crowd there. So if Leon starts to slip and have a mental lapse, like unless he has like his own version of Chris Gutierrez moment, then I don't see him losing. So I'm picking Leon Edwards. He's my second biggest play on the card. You can probably guess who the biggest one's going to be. 2.5 units. Again, we're going big here. At minus 155. And then I think that equals out to about 2 units. But then it's 1.5 units if he doesn't get finish him in rounds 3, 4, or 5. I'm officially picking him to finish Colby in round 4. Speaking of round 4. But I did the typical 0.17 U's Edwards round 3 plus 1600, 0.17 U Edwards round 4 plus 2000, 0.17 U Edwards round 5 plus 2500, 0.17 U. So yeah, that is my pick for that one. I'm going to clean up the chat here. James Kendrick, for the Neckies Awards, can we give an award for most reliable favorite and most reliable underdog? That's a good one. That's a really appropriate one, James Kendrick. Good shout there. Yeah, I'll try to mull that over and give you an answer in the next podcast or two. How about that, sir? Good one. Jimmy Kudo, Necky Award idea, best bodywork performance. Oh, you guys know me too well. Oh, Fenyo. He does look like Harold. Oh, now I gotta look up Harold from Harold is a Hey Arnold character, right? Fenyo. We're talking about Steve Garcia, of course, Mean Machine. Harold Berman from Hey Arnold. looks like I picked up on something. Makoto Kayagoku is with you, Fenyo. Oh my goodness, that is my one superpower. It's like stupid analysis that doesn't amount to much, or comparing people to like their movie or like cartoon character doppelgangers. That is my secret power. James Kendrick, I'll always remember Steve Garcia for running into an open side counter against Mishitate. That's right. Ghost, Usman kept saying that he dominated the wrestling exchanges and people were believing him. Which fight? Yeah. I mean, you got to tell yourself that as a fighter, but yeah, I excuse Usman for saying that, but yeah, the people believe in that. That's harder to excuse. Fenyo, your Dana is on point. Thanks, but maybe it's the suit jacket. I just need bigger collars. Like, listen, the fucking engagement on this is a fucking goof media. Sorry. Huh, buddy? Huh? Fucking Dana. Dan Irvin, taking a break from my flu binge of The Wire to tune in. Thanks. I got to get back to your my guy Dan Urban, because he is just so smart in many ways. Not just when it comes to judging criteria, jiu-jitsu, and Jim Miller fandom, like the important things in life. But he's also, speaking of the important things in life, he is rewatching The Wire, and I forget who else is doing that. I think TB or The Guru or both those guys from Chronic Combat Conversations. But I recommended this podcast to them, and I'll do it to you, because that's just what I do. Instead of like bothering to promote my own stuff more, I'll just promote other people's stuff that I like. Is Pod Yourself a Gun, which is Pod Yourself The Wire. And they do The Wire episodes. Vince Mancini and Matt Lieb, who I totally rip off of when I do Mick Parkin. Terrible English accent, apologies. The Wire is awesome, though. Ghost. The hand fighting by Leon along the fence was great, and I wouldn't even have looked at that if you didn't mention it in the preview. Wow, that means a lot, man. And I'm glad, because then it pays off, because people like yourself pick it up and put it in a much very palatable, digestible format like you do, Ghost. So thank you, and good on you. All right, next fight, main event time. Pantoja season, -192. Brandon-Royval, +160. Big fan of Brandon-Royval, man. Big fan of Brandon-Royval, fan of his camp. When I've picked him, we've done well. When I haven't, I've still done well. Because like I look back, I'm like, who did I pick? Nicolau or Royval, right? I didn't go back to look at that breakdown. But the pick was Nicolau. And I looked at my plays for that day, which was really annoying because we live just more crushing. It was like the Holloway Allen card. Just like classic things like, oh yeah, that was the time where I wanted to be that irresponsible chalk and fade the old guy. And of course, that's the time where Barbosa has a great performance. Like a dummy. But yeah, I played the under for plus money, and that was just, flyweight unders can kind of have some sneaky value. And that was a great example of it. So I still ended up making out on that one. Picked him Moreno to beat him. Didn't know the shoulder was going to come out, but watching this guy in LFA and what's not just either happened to him in fights low key, even like if they didn't cost him, but like you'll see like Royval's ankle give out and stuff like that, or other lanky fighters. Again, what are my check boxes? Bantamweights, flyweights, 5'9" and up. Long, lanky fighters cutting weight, especially as they get into their 30s, from 31 and on. Yeah, sure enough, whether it's happened to him or fighters he was facing again on the LFA regional scene, we've seen it's a tale as old as time. Even I don't know if Anik, amongst people have cribbed, who maybe cribbed off this, but I appreciate it because Anik is just sharp, and he is I don't know, I think people get kind of like triggered when he says O'Malley's durability. He questions it, but I completely understand what Anik is saying, because Anik is talking about the same thing I am. It's not his chin, not that he's impervious there, but we're talking about durability and physical durability. Like, how do you hold up, right? I forget who did I talk about this recently with tall fighters and going to the body, not just being a natural bigger target, but if they're cutting a lot of weight, it could make them weak there, and we kind of saw that. I know that was just a couple weeks ago. I had that call. So these are things I look for, right? And even though Royval is young, and don't get me wrong, like, man, people I respect are on Royval. I like Royval. With the way the odds are going, even though you're technically getting a discount, even at 2-1 for Pantoja still, because he opened at 2.5-1, and that is fair. At the same time, I'm not going to tell you, even though I'm a big Pantoja fan, #Pantoja season, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, you just got to fucking eat that chalk, baby. I'm Mr. Underdog here. I'm going to keep that same energy. People I respect are on Royval. People that I want to do well are on Royval. I like Royval's camp. And I have this sneaky, like, weird vision of, like, kind of like, shout out to Phil McKenzie. I shared out his podcast and tweet earlier where he was talking about this could be, like, where Colby gets, and not to be, like, rude or whatever, because they're not reductive either, or trying to be reductive, nor am I, right? But was saying, like, something I agree with, like, is Colby going to get fraud checked, or is it going to be a competitive, upset? It's like going to go one way or the other. And I feel like in a different context, the co-main event is the same way, where, does history repeat itself, right? And rematches never go the same in MMA, which is why I'm picking a different result, even if I'm picking the same side. But even at that, like, you've got that, right? And then as well as, like, part of me has this inkling, like, I see that TJ Dillashaw, Renan Barão won, I see what Royval's talking about and what he's been trying to do, even though 3 fights and 2 of those being really early in the first round doesn't show us a lot. Even just going to that Bontarine fight, he does that more, trying to pull and return, outside angles, a little more conservative, being able to counter. And he's doing a really bad job at hinting at that, but he's hinting at it so much that if I wasn't so fully invested on the Pantoja side, I'll get there, that I feel like there's sneaky value on the over. Like, especially if I was a Royval fan, I would be like, maybe putting a little bit of the over in there, because it sounds like he wants to extend this fight, and he's going to have the big cage and the footwork to do it, and his footwork and stuff is looking like much better and really smooth than the sparring footage and stuff you see online and practicing, and right, but that's like what we're seeing online, and that's practice and that's drills, right? It's doing it in the fight, and then the fight, still needs a lot of reminders to stay on track as far as exiting off of different angles that he comes in on. And then when he does get thrown out of position, trying to exit hard off those angles, he still has the natural inclinations to spin. Kind of like a Tony Ferguson, who we'll talk about, right? And, both guys, whether they're successful with it or not, even though they've had successful moments spinning and hitting guys, both those guys, right? Even their own corners, for what it's worth, are like, please stop doing that. Don't give a position. Be defensively responsible, as the corners should be, right? So it's like, can he do that? Can he fight that perfect fight, right? And we've seen much crazier things. Like, no one should be surprised if Royval not only wins, but is able to, like, have his TJ Dillashaw moment. But at 31 years old, especially at the weight class and the weight he's cutting and the dynamics, the things I laid out earlier, the time's got to be now for Royval, right? It's got to be now if it's going to happen. But at the same time, maybe not, because maybe you could argue, even though, which was my argument for Pantoja as well, even though he had more miles on him, going into the fight, Moreno has had a shit ton of miles from 2020 to 2023, right? And you could make the argument that, yeah, Royval definitely has less miles, but I see people trying to make that same argument that I was making, which was way more pronounced in the Moreno-Pantoja matchup. People are using that same argument for this one, and it's not as pronounced. I don't know about that, Like, I get it. Pantoja's older, but he's not that old. He's 33 years old, It's more like how long he's been fighting. But again, I think the man has proven himself to be Brazilian warhorse territory, right, folks? I mean, you don't even have to win a title, a la Edson Barbosa, who we were just talking about, to be considered Brazilian warhorse territory. But he is amongst the RDAs and the Dubronxes, the Glover Teixeiras. I mean, how cool would it be if, like, Glover was still 205 champ, Poatan was 185, Dubronx was 155, and Pantoja was 125? Oh, my God. Damn, why are you, like, jizzing over Brazilian fighters so much? I don't know. You call me out on it, but this is who I love, folks. The fighters that take the long road, baby. Took the long road. And they're just great, respectful sportsmen, great examples, just solid people. Like, how can you not love it? But yeah, it's got to be now. That being said, the durability, I don't like, and that kind of measures into the method. And, again, even though I imagine he's going to be more responsible and is trading things, and has been able to grapple more since he had that shoulder surgery, and I do believe that his shoulder is stronger, folks. But again, I forget which fight it is, but his ankle, like, gives out. Not only does he, like, kick out of position and then fall, or opponents will catch kicks, which, again, are all things that are bad for him and good for Pantoja in this fight, just like they were in the last one. But like you'll see his ankles and stuff like kind of give out like O'Malley. Again, drawing these parallels for a reason, folks. Say to look out for these things for a reason. Even though my picks and plays may not match up, I keep getting proven right on this analysis for a reason. And yeah, I mean, basically I played the KO prop for Pantoja because not only can Pantoja, not only has he rocked him with right hands, literally outside of his last fight with Nicolau, Royval's last 5 opponents have all rocked him with right hands. They don't get credited for drops or anything per se, but they all cracked him, standing and on the floor, right? He's been cracked standing and on the floor. Pantoja has finished people, high level UFC level southpaw challengers like Wilson Hayes. I know chin striking not as good as Royval. I'm just saying. He has finished those types of people, both standing and on the floor. Royval does not sound like he wants to grapple, so a lot of this is going to be on the feet, but just the right hands are just the common culprit. You can see it all day. And then, even if they have a good game plan, I just feel like Royval can be shook off of it, Something about his personality, he seems like he can be like really like flustered. I really like the kid too, but he seems like he can be really flustered easily. And it might, I hate to use that Mike Tyson overused quote, but like your game plan goes out the window when you get punched in the face. Whereas Pantoja, we've seen him make terrible tactical decisions and blow his gas tank out way too early if it was a 3-round fight, much less a 5-round fight when he finally gets a title shot. And what does he do? He continues on to win the decision, We've seen him pull out that in just his last fight throughout 5 rounds. Previously scheduled 3-round fights against this very same opponent. He's fought the same guys multiple times. He's undefeated in rematches. 2-0 technically, 3-0 if you want to count that exhibition with Moreno. 3-1 against UFC level southpaws. Of course, that one comes to Askar Askarov, but I feel like I was kind of proved right on Askarov. Askarov, even though I feel like he does get a little too much hype, it's not like he's a bad fighter at the end of the day. He's a good fighter. Let's not lose sight of that. But secondly, it was one of those fights where it's a bad performance from Pantoja, arguably one of his worst perhaps, but it's also much closer than you might realize when you go back and watch it. It's one of those fights, right? We'll talk about like Ige, Emmett, or Ige and Mitchell, right? Like classic, like not only was it closer than I remember, like you could make an argument for this person winning, maybe not so much that case with the Askarov one, but the timing of the Askarov fight is something you have to look at too. This was Pantoja's first fight. He didn't have his family. This is July 2020. So everybody kind of has that excuse of, gyms are shut down still at this point. This is his first fight back in pandemic period. So you got to give him a little bit of leeway for that with that Askarov fight. But then with the backstory, the dude was doing Uber Eats just to try to like get his family up here to America at this time. Like he was just only coming up for camps and having to stay and send money and be away. And it was like a really difficult time for him. Like he's talked about that recently. He never made excuses for it at the time. He's only been talking about this stuff recently in interviews. But you almost wonder how much of it is that. Like that's his one southpaw loss, right? And of course, his other wins, Ulka Sasaki. He doesn't stay standing with him too long. He just takes him down, and just gets to where he knows he can win. Maybe something he could do here because, of course, Brandon Royval rounds out that 3-1 stat as the third southpaw. He already beat Pantoja. Will actually, his game really doesn't change. He granted part and parcel because he is a counter fighter, but he will do something I love to see. I just saw Rachmaninoff doing it, which always made me happy. But like he will jab the open stance, right, or at least use it at the very least as a prod to set up his front kicks, his power kicks, and his windups into combination. Guru Askarov was at the top of the food chain at that point. He was, absolutely, yeah. This stock was at his absolute highest when he fought him. What's up, Guru? I love you on the show a couple weeks ago, my man. You were great. But yeah, so I just feel like that dynamic is going to be there, I shared out my guy, Will, Open Note Grapple. I didn't go read it because I want to keep my filter clean. But I'm guessing he's probably going to, if I go open his article, he'll probably suspect that the dynamic's very similar. He's just going to have a really good grappling breakdown. So I suggest, going to check him out. Talking about the diagonal controls and the things that like Pantoja was doing. I always call it's what I refer to as cross controls. If you've heard me for years saying cross control, that's what I was kind of taught to it as. I'll Neil Melanson. If you're riding someone turtle, or you got one hook in, you should be always wanting the kitty corner. That's what you want, for your cross wrist ride, Khabib style underhooks from the front or back kind of a deal. You want that cross control, right? Top side half guard. What leg are you wrapped on? Well, it's usually the body is where you want that cross control for your underhook, and you can go elbows or shoulder pressure, right? Frames, head and arms, passes, all that fun stuff. But yeah, let's see. Feño, hot take. Pantoja still beat Askarov. There we go. I'm not crazy. My man Feño, one of the scorecards I trust the most on the timeline, as should you. My guy Feño knows what he's talking about. And how about Feño, man? He does an excellent show, the Early Prelims podcast, as well as the full preview show. I share it for a reason, folks. And it's really hard to just do a show. I'm not saying it's hard like it's a fucking first world problem here. But like, you know what I'm saying? It's harder than people realize to do a show solo, A. To keep it going. To say and to keep it going to say actual stuff with substance. B. Those are two different things there. C, you could say maybe I do a decent job of those two. Thank you, I guess. But I cannot hold a candle to this. Being able to do it in a second language. Holy shit. And Feño does literally all three of those. So I just want to give him a prop, do dap, and you should go support his show. Feño, with good criteria, bad performance aside. Yes, I agree for that Pantoja Askarov. Yeah, so like that dynamic is still going to be there. And whether Pantoja wants to come forward or counter, which I think it'd be smarter to counter, because even though Pantoja's chin is tried and true, it's MMA. It's a fist fight, folks. Not going to pretend that Pantoja can't be stopped. And as we've seen, those knees can really bail out, I was going to say Emmett-Royval. They're just themes. They're quiet themes in a lot of his fights, right? He hits them. So that is the one danger of coming forward. He has really good, proprioception, or at least eyes on the fly, so to speak. Eyes in exchange, as Royval does. But again, subbing a guy like Pantoja, I mean, there's black belts and there's black belts. And even if Royval's been working extra hard on it, and is a black belt himself, it's hard not to rate Pantoja just higher from what we've seen of him technique-wise to how it stacks up against the actual sample in question. Not but 2 years ago, August 2021, when they fought. So, even though I don't want to say Pantoja's being disrespected because he's the favorite, but again, the MMA betting public, Royval is a real attractive person to bet and like as an analyst, as a fan, as a casual. So I'm not hating on him. I'm not hating on people who like him. I completely get it. But you couple that, the two basic top trends of MMA gambling, which is, ooh, flashy thing, spinny, kicky kick, young guy, to, oh, this person's old, weak, soggy penis. No, not for me. That's basically the basic breakdown. If you need to know about the MMA gambling world, that pretty much sums it up. I feel like that's a fair summation. Clearly kidding here. Not really. But, yeah, so obviously the number has, which you could argue this is probably more of a realistic number if we're, because it is a volatile game, right? I don't disagree with that. But yes, the number has gone down. So even if it's minus 200, you're still getting a 50-cent discount on the line. That being said, minus 200 is not really sexy. Even the minus 190s aren't too sexy. But I saw Pantoja dip down on Caesars William Hill to minus 175. It's no longer that way, unfortunately. I did actually track my stuff earlier in the week, at least earlier as in like before the show, which I never do for what it's worth, because I did get those good lines, and I wanted to be transparent about when I got them. But it was Caesars William Hill and Pantoja minus 175, and this is the biggest bet I've ever done tracked, folks. I think I did like a $800 bet on Canelo one time, like a couple years ago, just to probably like a few years ago now at this point, just to get like a rollover out of the way. Like I had a bunch of money in my bankroll, but I think I did a deposit within enough time where they could use that to deny me a withdrawal. And I looked at like how further I was away, and I'm like, man, I would need like to make a whole card's worth of bets, but it was probably at the end of the year now. So it was just, I'm like, oh, what's the next big bot? Well, Canelo's fighting this weekend. All right, I'm just going to go fucking pour on him as a minus 700 favorite or whatever, because I actually had the bankroll to do so, and I used that. But outside of like some weird shit like that nobody knows about or cares about, this will be the biggest one. It's 3.5 units Pantoja, minus 175. Pantoja season, baby. I mean, you proud of me now? I mean, oh my God, fight of the year. I feel people are already disrespect. I mean, the flyweights just get so much disrespect. Royval too, getting buried on the prelims. Like I got love for Royval. He's a part of this equation too, even if I'm not picking him, folks. Fucking flyweights are awesome. The fact that this fight's not getting the love it deserves, and it's even a question that what the fight of the night is, what the main event of the night, real main event of the night is. It's Pantoja-Royval. I don't even see how it's a fucking question. Even before these cancellations, keep Ian Gary on the card or whatever. Because it doesn't matter. People are going to make their jokes. Oh my God. I'm not trying to be like Mr. fucking curmudgeon and party pooping and fucking, what do you call, like Buzz Killington. But like, holy shit. And I'm sure there's funny ones and shouts. You're not a bad person if you made them. But it's just, as a contrarian, I can't help it. Like, oh my God. Like, shout out to the Film Vault, Anderson to Brian going, make your joke, Brian. Make your joke. That's what I feel like. It's just like everyone, you know, it's fighters giving unsolicited opinions, and then all us fucking caged animals on the sidelines with our fucking jokes for engagement. But that's just the thing we're in, right? It's engagement whoring. You know, we got to have like tweets every 30 minutes for engagement. You know, and I'm even seeing media do it. It's just like, what the. I don't know, man. Yeah, you can. I don't care enough about the topic to argue moral lines, because I'm not that person. I'm not morally right. I'm not some kind of fucking statue of it. I'm not trying to point my finger. I don't give a shit. But there are some things that, like, I feel like, the sky is. It's pretty easy to tell that the sky is blue. I don't think we really need to argue on what color the sky is. And at the end of the day, what side of that are you on? Are you someone saying the sky is red or the sky is blue? Are you saying someone that's like, okay, fine, I'm not even going to argue. We should have the right to talk about family, whether it's living wives or dead fathers, right? Let's just say that's all on the table. Okay, so you want to make it that known, huh? That you're on side of, I like when people talk about dead wives and disrespect families and this and that, and step over the do that kind of behavior. Whether we want to call it stepping over the line, 'cause I don't give a shit where the line is at. All I know is there's shitty behavior and there's being a good human being. I mean, and at a certain point it can be unclear, but at a certain point it can be pretty damn clear. Like, I don't think we need to be rocket scientists to figure out who's acting shitty and who's not. And that's cool. You can be a fan of the shitty person. That's fine. But let's, I don't get the calories burnt to defend shittiness. Which is just the classic thing. And I'm a fucking contrarian, folks. But again, it's the engagement game, right? Slap's got 5 of engagement. That is the same thing of what's going on. It's, Dana's talk of slap is like, it correlates to what I'm talking about for engagement tweets. It correlates what I'm talking about to my complaints on threads. Not against the good threaders, regardless of your check marks. Still sharing all y'all. But you just see shitty things like, who put this list together? Like, oh, that's right. They don't really care about the analysis. They just want to have fucking something shared. And they figured out how to crack the code. So that's why I just don't engage with shit. That's why you don't see me post on this stuff, and there's plenty of other ways to be funny, to be honest. Not to say you can't talk about that shit, but it's just like, it's so fucking tired, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. So yeah, anyways, I got Pantoja. Oh, and I played Pantoja by KO, like I said earlier, plus 525. I got a decent number on that over at BOL. And I put a half unit on that, so plus the 3.5 unit at minus 175, that's 4 units on Pantoja total. Because again, he can legitimately get it standing on the floor. And if it's KOs, also cover disqualifications as well as injury stoppages, right? So Not that I would wish that on Royval or anything, but again, he has a history of that. Something goes wrong. He doesn't make you. Maybe the fight gets stopped in the corner or whatever, right? We still cash the TKO prop. So I'm probably going to put that in a round robin as well. All right. Next fight, we'll go ShavedKat-Wonderboy, minus 650. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, plus 470. Just finished watching tape on this. Again, speaking of sacrifice, hopefully I'm not in trouble for being late on an article, but I was like, either I write, article 6 of 9, or I get one last fight to finish my main card tape study, so I have more to give you guys. And just all these little things where I just hurt my own goals, paycheck, well-being, health, circle, or whatever, just to do this stuff. So forgive me, if I'm a little after about a half decade of going it alone with no producers, help, assistance, nothing of that shit. So I'm trying, folks, I'm trying. Yeah, you're kind of priced out of playing this one. I'm like, is there a contrarian at what reason to play Thompson at this number? And or at what number do you play Thompson, right? And I was more than willing to leave the door open for optimistic answers for those until watching the tape. And not so much. Even though Thompson had a great performance last time out and a fun one, it was against Kevin Holland, who is good, but also can have weird performances, especially when he states beforehand he's going to have a weird performance where he takes advantage of none of the clinch things or takedowns that he did get, right? That kind of came up organically. We'll talk about that, as well as the fact that fight has been over a year ago. I mean, it's not a Covington layoff, but I mean, it's still over a year layoff, and at Thompson's age, you don't know how kind, or I should say unkind, those can be. Moreover, you also have to remember that Holland fight, that about round 2, as early as round 2, because he doesn't tell his corner until round 3, but it actually happens earlier, like round 2, I believe. Holland actually, stops using his hand, clearly hurts his hand sometime in that round. So watching anything past that, especially because this one's only scheduled for 3, whereas that one was scheduled for 5 and went into championship round, so to speak. Yeah, like you got to keep that in mind when you're taking in that sample size. So even though Thompson may have looked good, what I was looking at was his cage position. Thompson is good footwork, so he can get away with dancing on the outside of the cage. He will have the big cage here, but even in the big cage there, against a guy who's not known for cage corralling, against a guy who himself in Holland promised no grappling and doesn't have the best wrestling, at least offensively, still got takedowns, still ended up on top, still ended up in clinches, and still ended up, Thompson at least, with his back to the fence, and he would turn it around and was breaking Holland down. Again, the back half, but I'm talking about those first 2 rounds when Holland is kind of fully functional. These are 50-50s in the exchanges, and not only that, Holland's having his most success with knees, catching Wonderboy with knees in and out of the clinch, which is Rachmaninoff's shit, right? He loves knees to the body. He was punishing Jeff Neal to the body, which is great to see. Again, open stance, dangerous striker, fast striker, still jabbing in the open stance, still working the body. And the body work in particular, the fact that he works the body so much, I love, because against a guy like Thompson, long guys, in and out guys, you want to go for their legs and body. You go for the head, you're just chasing a ghost, which is the problem with Jeff Neal because he's a major headhunter, right? So you got Rachmaninoff, who's actually working the body, which is great. I think that's going to serve him well. And Rachmaninoff has, more, I would say, more proprioception than a guy like Royval. Maybe not the power behind it, obviously, like a Poatan, but more closer to that Poatan style of proprioception. You got a long, lanky guy, but he packs real power, and he can really find things on the fly. He kicks more than Poatan, but Poatan will not only throw kicks and head kicks, not kicks, everyone knows he leg kicks, but I'm talking about like head kicks or like spin kicks, flashier shit like Poatan. He doesn't do it often, but he has spooky accuracy, which shouldn't be surprising. Again, considering his proprioception, he can kick a soccer ball and shoot an arrow into it at the same time, working all these different motor functions. When most of us have trouble doing the circling our stomach and patting ourselves on the head thing, if you're not watching video-wise, right? The man's got some insane, coordination, proprioception, the lot. And Shavkat-Rachmanov looks like he's got a bit of that, you know, and he spins a lot more, whether it's spin side kicks to the body, to the head, adjusting things on the fly, even more simpler things like punch combinations, pocket strikes on the fly, finding knees, intercepting with those. So you have to imagine, at least especially with the spinning stuff, if you can do that and have a good eye for it, generally you can see it coming at you too. Thompson's counters are still going to be live, you know. Rachmanov showed he plays fast and loose. That's something I kind of don't like about his game in the clinch and striking defense. There's a similar theme there where he's so confident and comfortable that he is like, okay, and because he's got a bit of a natural counter fight in him at heart too, I think, that he will let things kind of slip by him and counter, and he's good. He'll take pivots and angles, and again, he's doing stuff right, but he's just plays a little fast and loose. And now he also proved that he has the chin for it, right? If he was able to take Jeff Neal shots, unless it's the perfect shot, which could put anybody out, of course. Power the last thing to go, of course. But yes, if he took Jeff Neal's shot, chances are he's probably going to be able to take Wonderboy shots, right? So maybe that's where his confidence comes from as well. But regardless of the level of striking threat, you would like to see that stuff cleaned up. And as far as the clinch goes, you notice it in the Jeff Neal fight, because with the Magny fight, he does some cool things, and you're like, I feel like Magny would be harder to take down in a weird way than Jeff Neal is, even though I'm somebody who likes to remind the masses that Jeff Neal was actually like a ground and pound guy and a cage grappling guy throughout the first half of his career. It wasn't until he got into the UFC where he really starts going full-fledged into striking. But even that said, I was still surprised that ShavedKat didn't have more success. Now, it wasn't that he didn't have more success, it's just that, again, back to the fast and loose theme, it didn't look like he was really trying with Jeff Neal to take him down. He was really just trying to, he's, you know, again, seeing what kind of comes to him. Like with the Magny takedown, it's a mistake, right? These are mistakes. It's a catch kick in the round one. It's a knee lift, and he wasn't blocking a turn a certain way, and he was able to take him down to the weak side against the cage in round two. They were mistakes. He depends on working off opponent's mistakes, and he's good. He knows what to do. He's durable. He's got the record, right, to back all these things up. But again, you don't like seeing, at least from the analyst point of view and coaching point of view, you don't like seeing somebody rest on their laurels, so to speak, you know? Especially on a matchup like this where even if, okay, maybe you can take his shots better, it's still Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in there, right? And you don't want to fight his A game, no matter what level post-prime he's at. Why don't you just take the path of least resistance, right? So it's kind of an IQ test, but as well for me is an urgency test to see if ShavedKat can be. I want to see if he's got that gear to be urgent. He's so confident and things have been coming his way, and he has so many things programmed and can react with that proprioception. I want to see him have that a stronger initiative and urgency is what I'm saying here. And I think this is a matchup that would be perfect for it, right? It's not one where he needs to, right? It's not like Anthony Smith, Khalil Roundtree. Like, you need the urgency or you're going to die, ShavedKat. Like, it's not those stakes, at least on paper. Although, again, anything can happen, folks. So I want to see that urgency. But speaking of Poatan proprioception, I'm going to go Poatan bedioception with the Rachmanov's been a similar like Poatan. These prospects that whether they're getting the respect on the money lines or not, it could be kind of hard to find a price you like on them, right? Maybe not guys you want to play chalk on, but heavy chalk on, but playing the rounds. Hot rounds. Get your hot rounds here. And I've been cashing on round 2 and 3 sprinkles in the Magny fight and in the Neal fight, and I'm going to do that same method here again. It's not as sexy. They've caught on. They've lowered the numbers with the spread as it is. You can imagine, again, we're kind of priced out. I don't want to choose, Parker, although if I did, I would go round 2, round 3 by sub. You can find those at like 1,200 and 1,700. Maybe I might take a little action on that. But no, I went over at BetMGM as the best numbers, plus 380 round 2, half a unit, and plus 650 for round 3, ShavedKat, both those rounds. So instead of, laying $650 to get $100 back, which is what minus 650 means, I'll just lay $100 total. And basically the math, the way it checks out is if round 1 hits, including what I have to give back for the missed round 3 prop, or if round 2 hits, including what I have to give back for the missed round 3 prop, it's pretty much a unit and a half in my pocket. And if round 3 hits, including what I have to give back for the missed round 2 prop, it is, I believe, 2.75 U, so almost 3 units. So potentially to make 1.5 to 3 units off of 1 unit. Not sexy, but considering the context of what's available, I'd say not bad. We're going to go back to the Roundwell, baby. That's the only play I have on that one. I'm going to get through the rest of this main card, and I'll clean up the chat. We got Paddy-Pimblett, minus 310. Fohanel, Patty-Pimblett. Paddy the Batty. He is going to soon be Paddy the Daddy. But on this show, he is Paddy the White Natty for his views on immigrants. But yes, Tony Ferguson, plus 250. At least he didn't use the mongrel term, right? He's steering away from like old school racist terms. He's using nit, which I guess is nitwit. Although I don't know. Maybe there's a weird etymology there. I'm not the police on words, so I don't care. I just can't help but notice these things. They're kind of funny. Of course, Tony Ferguson. I made a joke on this podcast years ago that has sadly come true, where I said, Tony, is it just me, or is Tony slowly morphing into the Mexican uncle at the family barbecue who wants to show you his knife trick for the umpteenth time? Like, hey, Chico, come here. Oh, what is it, Uncle Tony? I want to show you something. Uncle Tony wants to show us his knife trick again? Oh, let's go. No, it looks like he's been drinking. I know. Let's make it quick. All right, Uncle Tony, we're coming. And then like in the press conference today, he even made, or like this week, I forget what the context or what exactly he said, but he in one of his answers, he's like, "Oh yeah, man, I just want to be like the uncle at the barbecue, you know." And I'm like, "No, Tony, you are the uncle at the barbecue. Oh no." You know, and speaking of, shout out to my guy Phil McKenzie and the Heavy Hands podcast. This is like total, you know, I totally have the same inclinations as Phil as far as his coined term sadness hedging goes, where this matchup gets announced and instead of going, now's the time, no, all the way up until just last 24 hours, so I started researching this matchup actually, I just was like, which is the most depressing way for Tony to lose? And that'll be it. Like, that's what we're playing. Like, we're comparing the clippings on like the most depressing methods, and we're seeing which is the more depressing way, and that's what we're gonna go with. That feels like the general method. But when you look again, speaking of ride or dies, right? You know, and I love Thompson, Kempo karate guy. I know I picked against him, but I've also been a big Rachmaninoff fan, obviously big Pantoja fan. I already explained the dynamic with the Edwards Covington, you know, do or die fraud check there. This could be a similar one where it's just one of those things where, and we'll get to it with Bryce Mitchell as well, where is this fighter who I thought we were, you know? It's one of those things where I don't encourage betting, and I don't encourage certainly stubborn betting, but it's one of those things where I warn you to not get turned too, I know me of all people saying don't get too put off by your losses. I take your own advice, Dan. But I say it in this way, meaning that like, you see it all the time where I'm like, I'll hear someone breaking down someone, you know, a fight, for example, like, and I'm not picking on it because I've done this too. We've all done this, for being honest, where you hear someone, and if you think they're being negative, just wait. And even if they don't say it, or if you ask them, if you're able to, ask them, like, did you bet on this person in the last fight? And they'll be like, oh yeah, they fucking burned me. And you're like, oh, well, that explains that breakdown. I was wondering where all this vitriol and kind of biasy and, you know, not that what they were saying was necessarily wrong, but it was very one-sided, very heavy-handed, right? And again, I've done this too. I am guilty too here, folks. That's not my point. It's not to come at anybody by saying this. It's just something we need to be aware of because it's human nature, right? Overcorrecting the steering wheel. I talk about that all the time. And sometimes it happens with fighters you like, right? Like a Tony Ferguson. Now, I haven't picked Tony for his last 5 fights or so straight, so I guess I've already come to peace with picking against him. But I've seen people take shots, you know, different friends at different times where they go, you know, now's the time. Maybe Tony's going to get this one. And even though I was like, oh, man, I don't think it's going to happen. I hope you're right. I don't think it's going to happen. I could understand it, even though I wasn't there, right? Because, again, it's, you know, but then when you get burned, you're just like, at a certain point, you're like, okay, I give up on this guy, right? Even if it's a guy you like, right? Whereas on the contrary, there could be a guy you don't like and you bet against him and you get burned and you're like, I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to be stubborn. I don't want to be someone who doesn't learn from their mistakes, right? Who wants to be that? So you're like, okay, well, I'm going to be mature and learn from my mistakes and be maybe not a fan of this person, but appreciate them and wish them the best and take them seriously going forward and all that stuff, right? And you could almost be doing yourself a disservice because maybe your read was freaking right the whole time. And there are so many things I can think of both these examples, but I can't think of them right now. Although this is a perfect example of when not only do you have one of those things, but you have both versions of those things coming together. You got the fighter you like who's stock down versus the fighter you don't like and don't think's good, who is stock up, and now they're meeting. Is it a perfect time for the promotion in your classic crossroads fight definition where they're using the old guy to put the younger guy over? Like many of us, especially those of us sadness hedging, like I just said, expect it? Or is it the perfect motherfucking timing if you were an OG Tony Ferguson fan and you've been able to see through the Pimblett hype? It's one of those weird ones, right? And spoiler alert, I am finally back on the Ferguson train. I don't think he's back. This isn't, Ferguson's back. No. It's terrible. I talked to my guy Gil Guardado, who beat Giga Chikadze, who was supposed to be on this card, strength and conditioning coach, Extreme Couture, assistant gym manager now, Extreme Couture. Shouts to Gil, well deserved. And both his opinion as a pro fighter, as a trainer, and as a physical fitness trainer, he's like, that Goggins stuff is snake oil bullshit for one, which wasn't a surprise to hear. But for two, it's the worst for people like Tony, right? And I agreed with Gil. But even that being said, even though Tony is clearly post-prime, I feel like I don't even need to make the argument here with analysis, just the value perspective we're getting this number. Against a clear step up against Paddy, who has been inactive. He's been getting gifts, whether it was Jared Gordon his last fight or the last time he had to fight a guy with Tony Ferguson's a UFC level guy with Tony Ferguson's measurements, whom he lost. And even though that guy was even less durable, even at that time, with all due respect, I love Cameron Ferris-Bueller's Day Off. Of course, I'm talking about Aldana-Rosa and Cage Warriors, one of the more controversial decisions from that promotion, right? For hardcores, I remember that one. So Paddy's been, getting gift decisions, so his record doesn't even really represent what it is, I was talking to my buddy Aaron. He's like, he is young. Could he have improved? He seems like he's got a different, I don't know. His stance on, immigrants or people, change or anything like that. But he does seem a bit more humble, and maybe the maturity of going to have kids and life hitting you hard, and maybe the fans not all going his way since the last fight, despite him winning. Maybe that gave him some humble pie, and he's been working hard, right? We've already seen him improve on his out of camp weight fluctuations and his strength and conditioning. Who's to say he's not going to improve his technique? His technique did look slightly improved, especially in the very beginning from an offensive standpoint, but then once he started trying to flow and punch, you see that chin just still wanting to come up. And even in the stuff that he posts, we talk about Brandon Royval, right? We're like, what he's posting is good stuff, and most fighters generally, you would think, would want to post good stuff. Like, I didn't like the pad work or the pictures or the stuff that Paddy was posting. Like, he was throwing naked kicks, stills of him with his chin up throwing naked kicks. And if you look at Tony, who I know he's been finished in 4 of his last 6 losses, but oddly enough, it was those fights he got finished in, he actually did his best work. But because he got finished spectacularly on a spectacular streak, all for the world to see, showing your ass, right? Poor Tony's showing his ass on way more than I could ever complain about having to show my, he's having to really do it in front of everybody. It gets overlooked, but if you look at those 4 fights, he actually did decent at first. Not only did decent, he hurt, even though wasn't credited for dropping, arguably dropped, and in some cases, even against Justin frickin' Gaethje, his opponent could have been saved by the bell, right? And what were they with? Majority of them were with left hands. What is Paddy's common culprit? Left hands, no matter the stance. And whether it was Tony Ferguson, throwing the uppercuts against Gaethje from orthodox, whether it was the southpaw counters that he was lighting Chandler up with in round 1 that people forget about, the leg kicks, right, that he was getting Nate with, hobbling Nate, which was crazy. I believe the majority scorecards on the broadcast were giving round 3 to Tony Ferguson. I mean, it was more of an accentuated version of the point of Charles Johnson versus Yalka Zhumagulov. Say what you will about the scorecard, which I still thought was bullshit. You want to argue scorecards, fine. There's I don't know about you can argue the score for this particular round. And again, it's like it's a close round, but like the only person that showed reaction to striking was Charles Johnson, literally trying to stomp his foot back into working again. Like, we're so caught up with effective striking and trying to correct the steering wheel, at least in theory, maybe not with Park Muniz, at least in theory, toward effective strikes, but yet we forget that leg work and body work are effective fucking strikes. And you got Nate Diaz literally like having to be warned to fight, shaking his leg out, walking away. Like, how do you... I know Tony Ferguson, had like a little cut on his face and was taking some shots here and there in that round too, but like, how do you not award him for that? Like, clearly, And also Tony Ferguson, something he's done in his prime, I noticed, and even in this post-prime, when he's able to tag a lot of these guys, like Bobby Green or them. So with Bobby Green, it's with a shifting right hook. That he kind of stumbles him with. Not credited for a knockdown. Granted, Bobby was on one foot, so I'm not trying to argue that, although it was a good shot that he hit Bobby Green with, and he actually hits Bobby Green with a good shot prior to that as well. He was lighting Bobby Green up, but you forget, and I talked about this last time too, so it's worth mentioning and why you got to go rewatch the tape. It's 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the very first round. Tony Ferguson's doing great up until he gets eye poked, and it's a bad eye poke. And Bobby Green didn't do it on purpose or anything, but you can't deny the impact of it. And Tony, and I get it, he's looked garbage, he's on a losing streak, so it's easy to just chalk it up to that, but like, no, in his defense, he was he was doing good. He wasn't looking prime, right? But he was doing good. And then he clearly wasn't within a round where he wasn't hurt. He got eye poked. You forget that, but about the knockdown thing, it's when opponents are on one leg, he's really good at hitting people when they're on one leg, and that is what Patty still does. He still will throw naked leg kicks. You can tell he's really working on his jabs and his boxing distance and punching technique and being able to sit down on those better. But when he throws his leg kicks, a lot of them they're still naked, they're still by themselves without good feints or setups, and if he ends up on his back, I don't, like they both make such dumb decisions where it's like they both could dive right into each other's front headlock, and both are just like, and conversely, even if they don't, get submitted, the other person will oblige the person diving into their front headlock, and even if they don't get the submission, will end up maybe losing a round or something and spending the rest of it on their back. Like they both have those faulty. For as different as they are, they share a lot of the same defensive quirks and decision-making quirks. It's really weird. So yeah, not just for value, but even when we actually go into the analysis, within the context of a post-prime Tony, within the context of, you notice I'm not talking about any of Tony's wins. I'm only talking about his losses here still. Even within that context, I don't know, man. I still feel like there's a damn good case for Tony Ferguson. I was not expecting to do that. And even though I missed the 3-1, which was insane, I was able to find plus 270. I put 1.5 on it. Yes, I did. I put 1.5 on it, and that's the only thing I played. If that hits, that pays off my Pantoja exposure. Definitely pays off the Edwards exposure. Just for 1.5 at plus 270. And then I don't got to sweat the rounds, how it happens. Because, again, this fight, both fighters could win. You could make cases for both guys in every round by every method. You can make cases for both guys by decision. But yeah, another thing, speaking of directionality, we talk about directionality a lot in these matchups. That's another thing. The directionality favors Ferguson. Say what you will about Ferguson, and he might take some matchups a while to get into the striking, which was actually understandable in the Nate Diaz fight, because not only was it a last minute shift up for everybody, Tony Ferguson got the worst of that on paper because he went from 3 to 5 rounds. He was going from 155 to 170, and even before the fight week shakeup took place with all those fighters, there was only one fighter that didn't have a full camp, and that was Tony Ferguson. He only had 3 weeks notice. That's why he was all out of shape. So, again, we have to contextualize. I know he's terrible. He's already on his downside. I get those things, but we do have to acknowledge other stuff too, right? It is part of the pie. It is part of the picture. And directionality, he still will push forward more often than not. And Paddy Pimblett, in all his fights, picture his fight in your head. I guarantee you that unless it's not like him running out to the center of the octagon, most of the fights, whether he's winning, losing, takedowns, submissions, knockdowns, him knocking someone out, him getting knocked down, him punching, getting punched, I guarantee you there are 90% of those in your head are taking place near a fence. And I'd say at least 60% of that 90%, Paddy's in the negative position with his back to the fence. He is not a hard fighter to push back to the fence. And Tony Ferguson, whether we're talking about traditional Tony, if I will, for a second, because it's something built into him, to even as bad as he's looked in this run, folks, again, I'm highlighting the quiet things he's done well, right? On those strikes, across those 4 matchups where he got finished, where he was actually doing good in the first place. Guess where those happened? Gaethje, where was he? By the fence. Where was Chandler? By the fence. Where was Green? By the fence. Where was Nate getting pushed back to at the very least? Hold your breath. It was by the fence. That's Tony's kill zone. Yeah, man. Fuck it. I don't. It's not even the FOMO of I don't want to miss out like a Bobby Green Grant Dawson spot, but this could be that. This really could be that. And how awesome would that be, huh? All right. Main card, last main card fight just got shifted to the main card because Luque and Ian Machado. I'm not here to take part. I'm here to have pneumonia. And that was another thing too. Like on top of like everybody couldn't wait to like have their Ian Gary joke and like shit on him or whatever. Not that I care. I'm not even an Ian Gary fan. I don't even feel bad for the guy. I just think it's just kind of ridiculous at a certain point. But like, come on, guys. Like we all know this. When a fighter misses embedded or media, it's 90% due to injury and sickness, not because they're scared of trash talk. Like, come on now. Really? Like, that was even more ridiculous, seeing people jump the train on that and show their ass. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Really? So, yeah, I don't even... So it's like the dude was sick. Again, he's not here to take part. I'm here to have pneumonia. So now moving to the main card is minus 225, Bryce Mitchell, Josh Emmett plus 185. So, again... You got two dynamics at play here where I'm not trusting myself. You know, I'm Mr. Oh, I was right with Volkanovski, the pound-for-pound great. You look genius there, I guess, saying that short notice matters, even though it was really fucking obvious and it shouldn't have been a fucking smart point for me. It wasn't. It was an obvious one. It should have been obvious. But then, you know, I was talking to my guy Brad, and he was saying, and you know, yeah, he's been right, man. Maybe short notice does not mean as much these days because... Not only are they winning, these motherfuckers are coming in and being favored to win, right? And then we just had the Jalen Turner and the Bobby Green, and this is happening a lot. And for me, it just feels like wrong. Like, why are we favoring this person this much? Favoring them for one, favoring them by this much for two, and or doubling down on the favoring in reference to the public money, pushing the favorite line even further for the short notice fighter. Even if it stylistically fits them, like it did with Jalen Turner or Bobby Green, where I was on the wrong side, but even I said if it was a full camp, I fully acknowledge that this stylistically edges Turner, so I get the favorite from that standpoint. I fully acknowledge that. But this one, I don't know if we can say that. Like, again, it's classic, you know, I've been wrong fading Bryce Mitchell, and he not only overachieves, and which is good on him, I'm not trying to take away from that. That I love overachieving. It's a beautiful thing. Not hating on it. It's more that kind of that salty justification for when you lose a bet and you're like, well, this guy came out and fought his best fight. Who would have expected that? So part of it's that. I'll admit that, right? But yeah, you get a guy wrong. Back to that classic dynamic. You want to overcorrect the steering wheel. You're like, oh, now I got to respect Bryce Mitchell, right? Whereas Josh Emmett, even though I'm not a big Josh Emmett fan, and it was a really reluctant play, it was more for the value. And I did show my work. There were certain things to worry about with Topuria. And again, of course, that was classic. Like Sarukian, even though I've been on these guys since the beginning, even prior to them coming into the UFC, telling you how good these guys were, never picking against them. Of course, the one time I take a flyer when there's actually like reasons to show of like, oh, there could be some worrisome notes here. You know, are they due for that first prospect loss? No one is beyond that. Maybe that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. not commenting on their ceiling. Again, I've been pumping these guys up since before the Gen Pop was in these cases. And of course, classic Dan Tom style, I eat shit on their coming out party when they look great, right? So it's a little bit of that, right? On the negative side where I backed Emmett on that spot. And now it's like, you know, whether you backed him and got burned or, again, you're just somebody who does like a Sherdog breakdown. You don't watch the tape and you're like, oh, this guy losing, he old, right? Or, you know, back again, the he old thing, you're doing the classic MMA better thing where you go, oh, but old guy, he does soggy penis, no bet, young bet, he just said controversial, marketable bet. So, you know, if you're going like the typical process like that, then maybe it makes sense that Bryce Mitchell's a minus 225, but I don't get it. Even the odds makers don't agree because they only opened him a minus 138, but people went, again, back to what I said, not just opening him as the favorite. They went and doubled down on the guy who, you know, who drills off his scrotum sack. And, you know, like, the flat earth guy, you know, like, I know he's got like good fighting skills, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then stylistically, like we saw him lost to Topuria. I felt justified from that. And again, I try to keep the same energy, so I will say it, even if it is applying to a fighter themselves who has actually stepped in there. But I hate it, you know, you can mention these things, but you can't do it disrespectfully to take away from someone's performance. Because that's what he was doing, saying, oh, I'm sick. It wasn't that Topuria wasn't good. Well, no, Topuria was clearly good. You're spilling your food all over the place, Brownie. You already threw up. What are you doing? Your dog. Okay, come over here while I'm talking about the dog. It's a good omen. Come on. Come here, you Emmett supporter. Come here, you Emmett supporter. But yeah, you it was clearly a matchup, and I felt really good, right? Like, I took the minus 155. That was one of the few MMA betting Twitter ones where everybody's on one side or the other, and I felt good being on the right side because I don't like to take part in those. Actually, I don't like to take part in those, but if I am, it's nice to finally actually be on the right side, right? And then Bryce Mitchell comes out and goes, no, I was sick, and that's why. But then he goes and shows the same gassing propensities in his very next fight against a similar, and I love Dan Ige, but again, on paper, and the odds reflected this, to be fair, not as challenging, right? Not as dangerous, potent, or athletic, even though Ige is plenty dangerous. He's plenty athletic, folks. I'm not saying he's not. That's my guy there. I'm just saying, right? It was like it was an arguable, if Topuria is the A+ version of that archetype, you know, he was fighting like the A version, right? Or the A- version, or however you want to put it. Of course, I'm going to speak very highly about my guy. But I do believe that's kind of fair to categorize him as a far of a similar archetype, if not the same, even though not the same level. And in that fight, that was another classic fight where, like, again, like, and of course I'm on the wrong side of it, of course, right? Where it's like, dude, there's a solid argument that Ige won that. Even though it was, and again, I love Ige, but this is by his own admission, it was a really bad Ige performance. Ige's made questionable, you know, moves in victory or defeat, as do most fighters, granted. But no, it was even beyond that. Like, it was a legit bad performance from him, and he still almost won it. It was a legit bad performance out of him that was fought at a much lesser pace than the Topuria-Mitchell fight was, even though it went longer, obviously. The pace wasn't as torrid, and even though there was some key scrambles, right? Still wasn't as torrid as a pace, I'd argue. Mitchell wasn't sick. He even said before, no excuses, I feel great, right? Because he sold out so hard on it that even he knew, he's like, oh, I can't use that going in here, especially if people are going to ask me, so I got to go full throttle. And he's still gassed. And now he's going to take this fight on not even 2 weeks' notice. Like, it got announced just over a week, and you imagine what the fighter hears about it average 3 to 4 days before we hear about it, right? That's kind of the general average. So you go the generous, we go the generous math on that, and that's still not even 2 weeks. Now he's going to come in against a top shelf athlete. Not just like, does he have guys to train who are like Emmett, which maybe not the hardest. Again, Emmett's a wrestle boxer. So archetype-wise, not the hardest, but again, what Emmett does have is crazy athleticism, right? He's up there more with like Topuria as far as that athletic tier, even though he's an older dude. Explosive power. Even though we haven't seen him in the styles dynamic, which is tricky, we haven't seen him against a game-over grappler, much less a dedicated wrestler, right? Submission guy, wrestling guy, both. We haven't really seen that, right? But he's trained with those guys, the Darren Elkins, the Team Alpha Male guys of the world. Like, he trains with all those guys for years and years and years. Like, he's been there for a minute. Like, longer than the Elkins and the Rick Glenn transplants who have done well with Team Alpha Male, you know, to their own level. right? This guy has seen that, so you got to imagine, he knows his way in the scramble. And ironically, he doesn't have a great takedown defense rate, and it's actually worse than a guy like Ige's, which surprised me. But you have to look at the context of that. It's like Topuria went 3 for 3, but that wasn't the crux of the matchup, those takedowns. In fact, those takedowns didn't happen until the 5th round after Josh Emmett was arguably 10-7. The fight arguably should have already been stopped because most of it, again, the context, the key of the fight, took place standing. Something that Bryce Mitchell can't replicate, right? Even with improvements, which I don't know if a short notice camp is the time to show those improvements, even if you're the younger guy like Mitchell is. It's not the smaller cage. And even if it was, it's just like I feel like he's going to waste a lot of his energy that unless he's game over mode and we have a total bad performance from Emmett, he gets washed in the first round. I feel like Emmett, I have to have a really bad performance. Like I feel like Emmett could have a bad performance and it would almost encourage him to win. That's why I'm saying he has to have a really bad performance to lose. Meaning is that I don't think that he's going to be able to get him down easily, and he's going to deal with Emmett striking, which is why I think the value is on Emmett. He's the fighter training for this date. But also, let's just say he did. Let's say he gets him down. Let's just say he gets dominant position. He backpacks him, mounts him. His ground and pound and his submissions still aren't as good as Topuria's, right? And we saw him survive that, right? Even with those 3 takedowns on there or whatever. And even if it is a 10-8 round, a hard 10-9 or even a 10-8, let's just say it goes that bad for Emmett. I would love that as a better, especially the way I'm betting this fight. That's right, rounds 2 and 3, Josh Emmett, baby. Round 2 plus 1,100 quarter unit, and a quarter unit on round 3 plus 1,600. That's 1.55 units total exposure because I got Emmett at plus 195 for 1.05 unit. I wanted to make sure to get that 2 unit mark to cover the loss in case Emmett wins in round 1 or by decision, because I'm accounting for the again, I never expect to win all my bets, and I'm always accounting and doing the low end math. I'm not trying to pump up, I'm trying to be more realistic. Round down because I'm secure with my number. But I think that would be good for Emmett because then Bryce Mitchell's going to be gassed, right? If he gets gassed on a full camp, how's he going to be on a short camp? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like this rounds 2 and 3 are huge value. That's going to be my prop squad plays actually this week as well. My best bet's going to be Edwards since I already did since that's one of my biggest bets, and my biggest bet's already covered in my co-main, so I can't really write about that twice. So those are what's coming down the pike for action, or some of that's already out, actually, I should say, including the Ferguson breakdown and the co-main event. But yeah, Emmett round 2 and round 3 is probably what you're going to see on prop squad for fight day. I'll probably put like Emmett and Pantoja KO in a round robin. Unless they're limiting me where I need like a money line, they're not going to let me put anything sexy. And in that case, I'll be using Ferguson first and foremost because his number is nicer than Emmett's. But if I have to go money line in that round robin, I'll probably have to have at least one money line person. It's probably going to be Ferguson. So if they don't make me do it twice, I'll probably do Emmett by KO just to add a little more value. And we'll talk about what could be down further on the prelims. But yeah, I just that makes no sense to me. And again, it's just one of those things where it's like natural human nature is like, oh, I got burned by the stove, I don't want to do that again. It's like, no. The stove can't be on forever, and it shouldn't have been on in the fucking first place. Let's go. Well, that was a really bad analogy. Irresponsible the way I put that. You know what I'm saying? All right, the prelims are gonna be super fast, folks, and I'm gonna clean up the. It better be time I took, and I'm gonna clean up what you guys are saying. Anyways, we got some high-level coaches in the chat. Sean Madden, what's up, Dan? What do you expect from clinch exchanges in the main event? Hoping to see Leon utilize some of his inside weapons against Colby, but not sure how many clinch exchanges we'll see. Yeah, I wonder if he'll go more toward uppercuts as well, because right hooks and uppercuts were shots he was more comfortable with. Leon is in the southpaw versus southpaw matchup. I know that's not the clinch coach, but again, I think it's going to be more counter clinch tactics, hand fighting, and stuff like that. I did put in my breakdown, which is not saying anything special. Again, most of you guys know watching, I'm sure Sean Madden knows, Leon, one of his best weapons in the clinch is coming in, but mainly flowing out of the breaks, is that left, and it's always the left elbow too. He's got that beautiful left elbow, and that's going to always be there. But again, striking with a sticky customer, is a different dynamic, right, with the grappling there. So how much risk reward does he want to play? So I actually wouldn't blame him for being more conservative. You demand, Dan. You demand, Sean. I appreciate you. And speaking of more people being curious in the space and like doing the due diligence, Sean was one of the only coaches and trainers out there in this last ABC conference, taking the courses and doing this stuff. And that's what you want to see, man. The people out there guiding these fighters through the fire, trying to do their best. At least we obviously can't every time, but we're to do our best to be on the same page as these officials as best we can, right? So props to Sean there. Jin Karasu, as well as like guys like Dan Urban in the chat, obviously. Couchside Judges podcast. Go listen to them. Jin Karasu, Royval has cool knees, but do you think that will go against him in this fight? It could. I mean, again, I feel like the knees are more scarier than anything. I feel like that's his best path to victory in general, especially this fight. But yeah, like his kicks and knees and being on one leg could get him tagged as it has before. And we've seen Pantoja both tag him and others on one leg before. So to your point, Jin, absolutely could work against him as well. Dan Urban, can we bet the over-under on how long the first scramble lasts? Oh my goodness, I wouldn't even... the first scrambles are going to be the shortest, but the most fun, because both guys, I imagine, are going to be very fresh. And I got to imagine that Royval is going to be trying to avoid the scrambles this time around. Fenyo with the hot takes that Pantoja still beat Askarov. That's right. Guru, that's right. Askarov was at the top of the food chain at the time of that one. That's right. James Kendrick Dexlack also made an article on crab rides, cross controls he mentioned in Pantoja article. Yeah, I'm really bummed because I love crab rides, and for whatever reason, I found a tweet that I discovered that, and I don't even use crab rides to discover it, and then like I said, I already shouted Andrew Open Note Grapple does like a whole breakdown of the position. So I just felt silly sharing that tweet, but I shared it anyways. But yeah, absolutely, crab rides, getting behind the knees, it's so important. You see that, and that was kind of frustrating about the loss of so much losses of positions. Even though it was an awesome fight, obviously I'm not complaining. Still cash my bet. I'm not complaining. The UFC 290 fight with Brandon Moreno, fight of the year, and Alessandro Pantoja. But that was the annoying part, because Pantoja, even though he's a wild man, he does know how to stay behind the knees and elbows. I mean, he's one of the best back takers. Of course he knows how to stay behind knees and elbows. And that's one of the keys to my game. I'm always trying to get behind someone's knees or their elbows. Even when I'm in negative position. If I'm in half guard trying to build up to a single, I'm building up behind the knee up to below the ass, right? And below the ass is still behind the knee, right? And if I, build up to the single, but single, but they Colby Covington, Damian Miami, where they free their legs out, right, smartly, and sprawl out to a front headlock. Well, then I'm looking to get behind the elbow, right? Kind of like that Muniz sweep to Iron Turtle Park that my guy Ryan Wagner, another analyst I love and respect, showed. The key was it was getting behind the elbow. When somebody side rides me, when I'm in Turtle and they side ride and sit to the side and look to punch or choke while they're resting their hand across my back, I'm hooking on this elbow and rolling them. When I'm shooting for the signal and they sprawl out and I'm leaving this hand purposely forward as bait, out, so because I want them to not just front headlock me, I want them to head and arm me in some kind of Darce or Anaconda. I want them to go to that. I want them to commit their hands to a lock, because now they don't have a post, and all I need to do is get behind their elbow, which I should be doing anyways, because that is the same motion to clear the space for the carotid artery between the shoulder and the neck. So you're killing two birds with one stone, turning defense into offense, hooking behind the elbow, which allows you to sit through into a double. So even if you're in negative positions like a turtle or on bottom, always get behind the knees and elbows. Obviously, Pantoja does it from very positive positions. Its question is he going to be better about maintaining those than he was in the Moreno fight? Being too nice to this rascal. I don't know what you're talking about there, Vino. Let's say, Guru, anytime you're feeling lonely on the live show, you know who to call. Oh, Guru, you're the man. Dan Urban, we even glossed over it on Monday's CSJ. It's crazy how we fucked that up. I don't know what you're talking about. Dan Urban, are you talking about the Muniz fight in Park that I keep referencing? Or are you talking about the round 3 of Diaz and Ferguson in relation to Majuma Gulov and Charles Johnson, where it's just one of those rounds where there's clear leg damage and somehow the majority went the other way? And I'm not trying to shit on the majority. There's smart people in the majority, and they're in the majority. I'm in the minority here, but still, I feel like it's kind of clear, albeit in hindsight. Live reads, you got to go easy on people, folks. I have not the best reads in general. I will cop to that. My reads are much worse live too. So we have to realize that, whether it's judges or people posting their scores. Rios and Truesdale, isn't Thompson slowing down? His ability to stay off the fence and circle out is gone. I don't know if it's completely gone, but yeah, it's not great. Like, he, like I was kind of worried because, Neal was able to do some counter clinch stuff. But Neal was doing better than I thought and gave credit for. Whereas Thompson, I don't know if he's ever had that Machida where, like, Machida, it almost was like I don't want to speak out of school. Shout out to my guy Miguel Class, who actually covers sumo. But Machida actually had a sumo background, for those who remember, and it was kind of like a joke point. But the word it actually showed up in his game, where I would cite my Machida analysis, was his counter clenching, because he would just do these more flamboyant, like, it's not even like a wrestling limp arm, but like I almost feel like I see it more in sumo. But as far as like the clench separations or reset kind of deals, where they're really like swinging, and Machida would kind of do the similar move, and then he would like kind of karate flow out of it afterwards, like if he got out successfully. And Thompson used to have not the same style, but he used to have a little more urgency on his separations. So maybe there's something to that, Rios and Truesdale. But yeah, it definitely adds to my ShavedKat pick. Ghost, something I didn't mention in any of my threads. ShavedKat was jabbing well against Neal, who was a southpaw. Absolutely. Great pickup there. I agreed on that note. Jin Karasu, who does sprinkle mean in betting? Who does sprinkle mean in betting? Oh, what does sprinkle mean in betting? Sprinkle, that means like something small. Like, so like, something's got like a round props or something like that. When you're picking these methods, you usually get much higher numbers, right? Like the plus 2000s, right? And stuff like that, right? So plus 2,000, what was it off the top of my head? Like $10 gets you 200 or something, right? You only have to sprinkle. I say it to say that I'm betting it, but I'm not betting it big, to let you both know where I'm at, but also in an attempt to be responsible, to say, ooh, I like this, I'm gonna bet this. But someone may take that literally and have no sense of bankroll management. They'd be like, Dan's gonna bet it, I'm gonna bet it too, $100. And that's not my fault, that's not my responsibility, but I'm trying to mitigate that in case somebody is interpreting me that literal. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, by the way. In fact, I say that because I am somebody, ask any of my editors, any of my bosses, I am somebody who will take things almost comically literal. Like, almost to the point where, like, I would be one of those Japanese World War II people, like, still at the post. Like, no one told me to come home, so I just figured I'd stay here for the rest of my life. Like, I am literally, no joke, not too many steps shy from that. It's pretty sad. So that's not a shot on anybody. James Kendrick, can we get your Scouser accent? Fucking Scouser, Patty the white fucking natty, you fucking net. I'm not going to say the word mongrel anymore, because that's Tony. I'm surprised Tony didn't say I had Dana White privilege. I'm not going into Scottish now. Ugh, that's terrible. Sorry. Yeah, not a good Scouser accent. I tried for you. Fanyo's crying. I don't know what it's about. What did I say? James Kendrick, it's too bad we won't hear you say, we aren't here to be Irish, we're here to be Brazilian. I'm not here to be Irish, I'm here to be Brazilian. Well, now he really is, because he's training with, he got kicked out of England, and now he's training, like, he's at least trying to train with Maya and do Bronx in Brazil. He's got, like, residence in Brazil. So, yeah, it's Ian Machado Gary, baby. Jimmy Kudo, I love that analogy about the uncle at the barbecue doing knife tricks analogy. I keep wanting to use that other places, but keep forgetting. Thanks, I appreciate that you guys appreciate that one. It's that is kind of funny. Synchro Wing, do we hope that Emmett loses because he only throws overhands? ? But Mitchell is just an annoying person, so I guess the fans lose in an Emmett versus Mitchell. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Synchro Wing there, but yeah, we'll see. Hopefully Emmett wins for my bets, I guess, right? Rios and Truesdale, the Sherdog method. I'm going to use that against people I don't respect in MMA space, like most WMMA YouTubers. Yeah, you can usually tell by their analysis and reasoning how much analysis they've done. Ghost, Open Note Grapple, love William. His articles are always great. I love, yeah, it's fantastic stuff, and the man knows what he's talking about, and it's from experience. Okay, I'm going to speed through the rest of these. Arin Aldana. You guys know I'm an Aldana fan. Easy, Dan. Minus 192. Carol Hosa. Plus 160. Going to go with Aldana by decision. She should win this one, but as much as I love Aldana, I would not be surprised if she makes it harder than expected or if Rosa starts kind of showing up. I don't want to say again because I feel like it's very matchup dependent with her, but yeah. I will take Aldana by decision, and the money I already checked, it's not great for those. Cody Garbrandt, minus 192. Brian Kelleher, plus 160. I feel like Kelleher could be a live dog, but I didn't look into this, and I'm very exposed, even though I want to go big. So I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to get through that. I still have like 4 more articles to write and edit this podcast, and I want to try to get Karate Combat bigs, and I want to go work out and do a hot yoga and pick up dog poop in the limited daytime that we have in Las Vegas, Alaska. I know. Nobody cares. But, yeah, well, check me on Fight Day at Dan Tom MMA on the artist formerly known as Twitter, where I end up on this one. On that one. On this one, I'll probably be picking Casey O'Neill, who's minus 192, plus 160 Ariana Lipski. But Lipski feels like a live dog here, too. I'm a big O'Neill fan as well, and she does fight out of my backyard, so not that I know her, but for whatever bias you want to accuse me of, sure. Dustin Jacoby, minus 270. Alonzo Menifield, plus 220. This one could be interesting. I don't think Menifield has the consistent counters like a Mirzakhanov or a Roundtree. As far as like the few guys I picked, Jacoby again, and also Menifield is not a southpaw. And again, what I always say, whether it's that Dustin Poirier moments of success in a losing fight to DuBronx, or again the Jacobys to Mirzakhanov and Khalil Roundtree, that lifting, feinting style where you lift the knee and kind of march in. Like potent southpaw explosive counterpunchers seem to be a real kryptonite stylistically for that style. So again, it doesn't match up completely, but Menifield, obviously an explosive puncher, getting better with his counterpunching, dangerous puncher, and apparently a fan of wrestling and has had some really funny but also underrated looks in that department. And even though Jacoby is underrated himself, maybe Menifield could surprise him there. I don't know if enough to, consistently find a consistent path to victory or winning condition, but in a close round, Jacoby has definitely, been subject to close rounds, even if they're not close to an educated eye. It's close enough to where you don't want to give up an explosive athletic dude doing explosive athletic shit. You know how much I love and warn about those always ruining shit in your cereal, so to speak. I'm gonna pick Jacoby. Even though it sounds like I might have done some analysis on this fight, I actually didn't do any tape on it. This is just knowing these fighters pretty well. Full disclosure, this one I am looking to play. I haven't done a deep analysis on this one, just a little bit on Durden for the Southpaw Report against Hadley, rewatching that fight. Of course, I lost out on that one. I wasn't super exposed because even though I didn't pick Durden, and I haven't picked him a lot, it's not because of a bias of like his post-fight speeches or anything like that. Like the dude has been putting in work and really deserves credit. I believe I've given him that before and been fair about that. And even when I pick against him, it's like respectfully, where it was just like I only picked Hadley by submission and had it in the round robin, and that would have really came in handy that night. And you could have even argued that there was a verbal tap there, so that was very frustrating. You're not just close, but like arguably, like in the rules that when somebody screams out like that, you're supposed to stop it. And I'm not just saying that because I bet it, but that's literally what I knew before taking the ref course, and was sure enough confirmed after taking and passing the ref course. But yeah, still got to give credit where credit's due. Durden looked good in that. Obviously, the main thing here, Ulanbekov, both with his path methods of victory, to just look at the way he's built. Obviously, the front choke threats are live for his pathway to victory. But as far as striking goes, and then even holding up in the wrestling, it feels kind of nip and tuck as it can be with Cody Durden, but his confidence and ability to fight hard for 3 rounds, which he does do, regardless of how you score some of his fights, he does do that. He's also just getting better. So I actually like Cody Durden by decision. At anything 2-1 or north of 2-1, I'm probably going to look to put that in a round robin, and also probably put a unit on it straight up. And if anything, it'll just get out of the way of it's not me being negative, folks. Seriously, this dates back to like a half decade, even on my good years, which of course, nobody bothers to give me credit on those, even though I recap those on multiple ways through Junkie, in smaller ways with the main card picks or staff picks, to just recapping it through all my work as mixed martial analyst through those years, to recapping it through all the years in the podcast. People are too lazy to do that. People are too negative to do that. Instead, they want like some bet MMA tip shit. Even though, oddly enough, if you actually track the people, like the percentage of people who cheat and fudge records. It's most people. The primary of it is on people on the record sites, which is odd enough. But that's what they want you to go to be legit. And of course, my first year, I do it and I eat my ass in front of everybody pretty much. Just, So yeah, so forgive me again for being emotional and upset and negative, but you gotta understand I'm very grateful for my job, my health. I'm not ungrateful for these things. Like I hope I don't come off as some ungrateful prick. I'm not only am I grateful, it's annoying because I'm more grateful than most. I just talk about circumstantial luck, Chris Gutierrez was talking about something that I could really relate with in the pre-fight preview with the Songs fight, where he was talking about like generational luck and trying to change that. And yeah, like when it comes to circumstantial luck, again, like I just. Yeah, we'll see. Let's at least hopefully have some Christmas money so I can maybe get some suits, some real suits, and get some real work and knock stuff off my list that I still want to do before my time is done here, which is call fights finally. So we'll see. What fight am I on here? It's Cody Durden. Okay, yeah. And I think that's no. We got to scroll the fuck up now for the other fights. UFC bullshit. Let's go. Andre Fili minus 175. Lucas Almeida plus 145. This one should be a fun fight. I didn't get to look into it though, and the odds aren't too attractive because I feel like they're kind of exactly right. I don't know what they opened at. They opened pretty much the same. There hasn't been too much movement, which says that I am not alone in feeling that must be right. So I don't have too much to say on this one. I am going to be picking Fili. Martin Buday minus 135. Shamil Gaziev. But yeah, the heavies. You know what? At least they didn't put this on the main card, right? God forbid. I'll probably pick Buday, but I don't want no part of this fight. Salikov versus Brown got canceled, so did Ige versus Luque. So I think that completes it. How did we do on time? 1:56. All right, another 2-hour show, and so hopefully people were able to get past my shitty start of the podcast. I apologize for that, guys. And yeah, because I feel like this was loaded with a lot of analysis. Otherwise, all right, I'm gonna clean up the chat, recap, and get the fuck out of here. Rain Lamina, I say this every time Aldana fights. Remember when she followed home around the cage, didn't cut the cage against her? That was the worst southpaw performance ever. That was so painful. I actually picked Aldana. Boy, did I look stupid there. Jimmy Kudo, we lost a PYN favorite in Muslim Salikov. I remember you said that you like him, but are annoyed that he never leads. Yeah, and he's definitely kind of the passive portion, and might have been a tough matchup where he was doing well until he got brutally finished, kind of a deal. But we'll see. Hopefully, he goes against somebody who doesn't like body work, because that guy always has good body kicks. Ghost, Necky Award idea, Southpaw Technique of the Year. Ooh, really good one. Really good one, Ghost. You guys are making me want to do an award show now. Damn you guys. I love you guys. What am I saying? I love you guys. I get mad. But I'm just a curmudgeon. I'm just an old bastard. Don't take me seriously. I'm harmless. Jim Karasu, Necker Award. Necker. That sounds funny. You kids necking off in there? Wasn't that an old term? Anyways. Necker Award. To add to Ghost. But why? For piss 4 fight IQ. Sorry, stole from Jack Slack. That's a solid one. That is a solid one, right? Makato Keigoku, my award idea, best Chinese fighter of the year. Or Chinese. Zhongguo Di. Yeah, so who's the number one Chinese of the year? Let's do that. Chinese. Mega Chinese. Myself a proper Chinese. Right. Big John Chinese, sit there. Rio says in Truesdale, maybe it's because I am not familiar with betting, but how does odds affect fights? It doesn't affect the fight. It just, odds are just numbers they put to make value. Like, I can't explain how England does it, where they have the 5-1, this fighter's 8-1. But in standard, like North American houses, standard odds you see on broadcasts that aren't English broadcasts, basically minus means they're the favorite to win. Plus means they're an underdog. Okay, basic. And if you want to look at it any further, okay, what does minus 225 mean? Obviously, if they're minus 525, that's a greater number than 225. So that means they're a greater favorites. They are more favored, right? That's kind of self-explanatory. The higher the number, right? The more they're favored. The higher the plus number, the more they're an underdog, right? And last but not leastly, more specifically, if it's like minus 225, that not only are they favored minus 225, that means to get $100 back at the betting window, you have to lay $225. That's what that means, right? That's why favorites aren't as attractive, because you have to lay a lot of money to not get as much back. And in a volatile sport like MMA, it could be a fast way to lose money. Whereas live underdogs who pay more than what you're putting in get more bang for your buck, so to speak, right? So how the $100 works the opposite way is if it's plus 225, well, that means if you lay $100, you get $225 back, right? As opposed to laying $225 to get $100 back. That's about as basic as I can explain it, and that's all you need to know to really understand it. Because anymore, you're going to be a degenerate like me. Maybe it's because I'm not from... Oh, no, sorry. James Kendrick, awesome show, Dan. Let's finish the year strong. Enjoyed every show, win or lose. I appreciate you guys. I really have not been giving you guys my best, and again, I've alluded to a lot of things, but it's been, a really rough year, and I got to imagine, to give the bad luck stuff that I keep half-heartedly, half-jokingly talking about a break, it's not even, there's not even bad lucks and bad beats, there's bad bets in there. It's not even bad lucks, bad beats, or bad bets. How much of it is I'm just being pulled in a billion different directions with a lot of real-life stuff going on that would be hard for anybody to deal with, much less deal with alone, much less deal with in unison for about a year straight. Much less even if they're having a perfect life doing the job they love. Again, pizza's awesome, but if you have it every day, you don't take any time off. I think I've only taken 2 weeks off this year, and they were like both because I was overloaded, had to help my mom move, or recently to help have a dog surgery. Like those were the only weeks I use. I only get 2 paid weeks off a year as an independent contractor. That's it. I don't have Sundays off. Not watching football. I'm having to clean, run errands, prep, work out, like all these things. Like it's just there's no breaks. So forgive me. I apologize. We're gonna do better this next year. I know I feel like jumping off a cliff and not doing this shit anymore, and that is real. And I really do only, if things don't improve, I don't think I'll be covering into 2025, maybe 2024. That is not a joke. It might be my last year if things don't improve. But I'm gonna go out blazing, man. I'm gonna give this. I know things have been tough. I know I've been a complaining little biatch, but no, I'm what the fuck else am I gonna do? So for now, I will say, fuck the morning. For now, I'll stay up late, put my heart into something real. To quote Lifelong Tragedy. Because the most profound things that I ever heard came from half-awake kids who never had their turn. So, on that note, let's recap the show. Dan, we are PYN family. We stay together. I appreciate you, Jimmy. All right. Recapping. All right. Taking Edwards over Covington. Taking Pantoja season over Royval. Taking Cockmanoff, baby, over Thompson. Taking Ferguson over Patty the White Fulcanati. Taking the Voldemort, Josh Emmett over Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell. I got shorts every fucking color. Designer t-shirts. Taking Aldana over Hosa. Probably going to take Garbrandt over Kelleher. We'll see. Check me on fight day. Probably taking O'Neal over Lipsky. Check me on fight day. Probably taking Jacoby over Menifield. Check me on fight day. Probably taking Durden over Ulanbekov. Probably playing by decision as well. Probably taking Fili over Almeida. Probably taking Buday. Hey, Buday. Petra Munoz. Over Gaziev. Would have taken Brown over Salikov probably, but I'm glad that fight's not happening because I didn't want to see Salikov get beat, and I probably would have taken Gary over Luque, although I probably would have switched to Luque with hearing Gary was sick, but that fight didn't happen. Either way, it's good because I don't have to see Luque get beat. I've seen enough of my favorite fighters get beat. I've seen enough of Tony Ferguson get beat. Hopefully he can turn it around because we are playing 2 dogs and 2 favorites. Ferguson, 1 dog, 1.5 units, plus 270. Emmett, plus 195, 1.05 units. Favorites, Pantoja season, biggest track bet of the year, minus 175, 3.5 units. Edwards, minus 155, 2.5 units. Also played Edwards round 3 plus 1,600, round 4 plus 2,000, round 5 plus 2,500 with some sprinkles, 0.17 U each. Pantoja by KO plus 525. It'll probably see itself in the round robin. Emmett round 2 plus 1,100 quarter unit. Round 3 plus 1600 quarter unit. We'll probably put Emmett by KO if I don't have to put his money line in a round robin. We'll see. ShavedKat, just not so sexy, but, shaving down the price with round 2 plus 380, half a unit. Round 3 plus 650, half a unit. Hot rounds. Get your hot rounds here. And I'm probably also going to go, don't be surprised to see on the round robin or straight up, Durden plus 200, probably for a unit as well. We'll see what else I get to. If anything, of course, I'll be tracking and accounting for it all here at the PYN Podcast, which you can follow on all social platforms. Action Network, you can follow my gambling analysis as well as my third-party track information. If you're lazy and you don't want the context and just want to see some really ugly numbers so you have information to make fun of me and make yourself feel better, you can join that train as well if you'd like. Positive ratings and reviews really do help. I don't feel like I deserve it. Thank you guys for doing your click-throughs. I'm going to do the recap on the next show for all the Christmas and Thanksgiving and holiday shopping. MixedMartialAnalyst.com to support this here free program. Just go to MixedMartialAnalyst.com, my site that supports this here show. Scroll down, click on the Amazon or on it click-throughs for your Christmas shopping or holiday shopping, Chanukah, whatever you celebrate. And a small percentage of whatever you buy at no extra cost will get kicked back to this year program, and it really helps. Also on MixedMartialAnalyst.com, and where you can find me at DanTomMMA on all social platforms. Maybe those little cheeky underscores for Instagram, but you look at the link tree. No OnlyFans there, I'm sorry. But there is a PayPal donation link if you want to be too kind to support this here free show. I don't deserve it. The results don't deserve it, but it's there, and it's also on the homepage of my website, MixedMartialAnalyst.com. Follows, likes, subscribes. I will also do another catch-up on 5-star ratings and reviews like this video. I don't deserve any of it, but it all fucking helps. I turned off monetizing to punish myself last week. I turned it back on this week, not that I deserve it, but that's there if you want to do a super like, a super thanks, super chat, even though the show is about to be over. Much love. Thank you, Jin Karasu. Do your well. I'll love your effort, respect your opinion. Thank you guys so much for the love. I don't deserve it. I appreciate you guys. Good luck. Enjoy the last UFC show this weekend. And always protect your neck.